even the best of them, the squad, they will go along with Goldman Sachs, Eli Lilly, and Blue Cross Blue Shield and screw you over, because that's what voting for them did. They go along with Nancy Pelosi, and who owns Nancy Pelosi? The oligarchs. So when you're voting for them, you're voting for oligarchs. The squad being inside the Democratic Party gives people the false notion that there's someone in government fighting for you, that there's a party that's on your side. That is not true. And I would like to disabuse people of that idea. That's actually worse having the progressives in the Democratic Party than not. If they weren't in that party, people would know for sure their government was their enemy, and they would be looking elsewhere and to do other things. But right now, they keep dangling that carrot. Oh no, AOC and Rashid Tlaib and Ro Khan, they're all working for you and fighting. And Bernie Sanders, and they're not doing shit. They are doing the bidding of the oligarchs. Bernie Sanders is acting like Joe Biden is his boss, instead of being there and pushing him left and using his leverage and putting holds on bills. He won't do anything Joe Manchin will do.
Senator, you brought the Senate to a standstill for 10 hours on Friday, threatened to side with Republicans, and did not budge until a call from the president and significant concessions were made.
Perhaps you've heard of good cop, bad cop. It's a negotiating tactic. It's taken from the scenario where a person is being interrogated in a police station.
All right, Tommy, you're looking at 10 to 15.
You have a good cop come in and say, hey, I want to work with you.
You looking at my cupcakes?
Please give me the information.
Go ahead, take a bite.
And then a bad cop comes in and says, if you don't give us this information,
now, we can do this the easy way,
we're going to crush you.
or we can do it the hard way.
Blah, blah, blah. By using the good cop, bad cop approach, the theory is the good cop is able to solicit information, leveraging that kind of rapport that's being built, while the bad cop is creating fear.
Welcome to another episode of the Nick and CJ Show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's poppin', my friends, my family? It's great to be here. Nick and CJ, Saturday Live. We have a great show for you today. A lot of great topics. If you guys didn't see it, make sure you guys check out the stream we did yesterday. We had Misty, great friend of the show, honorary RBN member. She joined us yesterday. Those streams are very therapeutic. Every time because Misty is very fun to rant with. Like, it's very easy. Like, I always throw the outline out at the end of the day. And Jimmy is very similar. Always fun to have Jimmy on. Welcome to RBN once again, independent journalist and a comedian, Jimmy Dore. Welcome.
Hey, it's great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me. Fantastic. I already smoked a little weed, so I feel like I'm in the right state of mind.
Yeah, you know how we do it over here. You know how we do it. That's the best way to do RBN stream. So I'm glad you're in the right mindset. And I want to give you your thoughts on this, because we've been covering this a lot. Like, it's so unbelievable. I'm still shocked to this day, like how far I have dubbed the NATO left, how far they're willing to be PR tools for imperialism. And Jimmy, I want to get your thoughts on this, because there's some people still gets it wrong. They still think that Bernie, AOC are there doing their best. They're trying their best to represent us. They may have bad strategies. They may be losing. My take is these people are active agents of the imperial machine, active PR agents of Joe Biden, and must be resisted. Now you have people that's trying to do the same thing again. We already spent $100 million on Bernie Sanders, and they want to do it again. So I want to get your thoughts on these two things, like your take on Bernie, his take on Ukraine recently, the strategy that people still have of shifting this party, like the Democratic Party has shifted so far to the right under Joe Biden, but it's still trying that strategy. So what your take on people who still believe in that and still believe that Bernie and AOC are good faith actors?
There's no doubt that Bernie knows that if he opposes the empire and imperialism, that they'll do to him what they did to Trump, what they will do to anybody who imposes that, what they did to Ralph Nader. And he's not willing to. The only difference is Ralph Nader didn't have any power. Bernie actually is elected and he actually has power and he actually has a huge following that are willing to do what he directs them to do, except he did just like Barack Obama. He disbanded his own following. He asked them to do nothing ever except give them money. So Bernie Sanders is now a war pig. Not only does he lie about the war, its origins, what the point of it is, and give credence to the liars, people implementing this war, the imperialists. Not only that, he's voting to fund it. So that's unforgivable. So you can't be a war pig and call yourself any kind of a lefty if you're for the slaughter of people for imperialism, which is what he's there for. And it just goes to show you that he's willing to roll over on anything. He just put out a video about that actor who's probably going to win the Academy Award tomorrow night, that Asian actor from All at Once, Everywhere, whatever that movie is. And so he talks about how he lost his health insurance because he couldn't get hired in Hollywood. And Bernie Sanders tweets out that video. And at the end, I didn't know it was Bernie Sanders. I was just watching the video, and at the end it said Bernie Sanders. And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. He's back to pretending to give a shit about Medicare for all. Like, I think he does. And if he could, without having to risk or use his leverage or
don't want to work for it
off or take any slings or arrows, I think he would implement Medicare for all, right?
Yeah,
but if he has to
definitely.
fight for it, or if he has to stand up against the empire and he's not going to do it. And so he didn't. So Joe Biden got elected. He didn't. He stopped talking about Medicare for all immediately. He stopped talking about revolution after 2016. He used to start every speech with, sounds like you're ready for a revolution. That got over. That's over. And so he's not for a revolution. He's for funneling that revolutionary energy back into that anti-worker, pro-war party, because Bernie's pro-war, and he's proving it by voting for it. Also, he won't make anybody, they can't even hold him accountable for East Palestine, for F's sake. He won't do anything. So what they've done is when the Democratic Party decided to turn their back on the working class, which is what they did, when I had I had a Boogaloo Boy on my show, and the guy was pro LGBTQ, pro Black Lives Matter, anti-Trump, anti-cop, anti-war, except he was a gun. Those were people who were voting Democrat 25, 30 years ago. And that's the conversation, because he's working class. And he couldn't get a job because of the oppression of the lockdown. So he was being oppressed just like everybody else. And he came together with anybody that would want to join together. And he said, we got more in common than divides us. And so I forget what the fucking point of this was, because I'm high.
You were talking about because they got mad at you for having a Boogaloo Boy. And to that point, they just hate organizing in general. I was at the
They don't look exactly, because so that was when you can't have people organizing along class lines, which is what Bernie should be doing, right? And just like right now, the progressives just let a press release go out through Ryan Grimm that they joined with Matt Gaetz to try to end the war in Syria, which is great. But I had to remind everybody, they don't agree on LGBTQ rights. And how dare you work with someone to end a war? I thought that was bad and wrong. And that was endorsing every bad thing about Matt Gaetz if you worked with him to end a war. Of course, that's not. But you're exactly right, Nick, when you say they are against any kind of organizing of any kind, right? And that's why you don't see where is the propping up of Christian Smalls going, right? Where is he being propped up, and his example, right? And so again, the way you organize is along class lines, because they're being all they have left. Oh, I remember what it is that when the Democrats turned their backs on people like that guy, that Boogaloo Boy, they didn't have nowhere to go. And instead, and so then they're not going to, like Chuck Schumer said, he goes, for every blue collar worker we lose in the city, we're going to pick up 2 white collar voters in the suburbs. He said that in 2016. Well, he was wrong. They still lost to Trump right? Even though they turned their back on blue collar workers, which they did, and now they've got nowhere to go. So what do? They double down on identity politics, and that's all they talk about. So that's why they're hyper focused on LGBTQ rights. They're hyper focused on calling everybody a white supremacist or a right winger, just because they disagree with they're calling Russell Brand that now, right?
Russell Brand is a right winger.
What?
You're a right winger.
I haven't heard that. This is the first time I'm hearing that.
All these people are right wingers as Joe Biden is funding ICE to historic levels. As
so-
the Democrats is funding the police more, they calling other people right wingers. But go ahead, Jimmy, finish your point.
And here's the thing that people don't realize: what they did to Trump, right? Hey, you know me, I'm no fan of fucking Trump. Donald Trump is a loudmouth Yankee who should have had his ass kicked a long time ago, in the words of my friend Nick Smith, who is a Waffle House cook in Virginia. Okay, but the Democrats gave those people nothing to vote for, right? So when the Democrats turned their back on workers, that's what it was all. And what they did to Donald Trump, they would have done to Bernie Sanders. They started to do it to him when he won in a couple of primaries. They started immediately russiagating him. And Bernie Sanders, instead of turning around and blowing up that narrative, he forwarded it. Him and his advisors forwarded Russiagate, which we always said was going to be used against him. He didn't care. That's how big of a spineless coward he is. He was willing to shoot his own campaign in the foot to push a narrative he knows is false, just because he doesn't have the balls to go up against the establishment the way he should. And that's why nothing he wants to do ever gets done, because he won't use it. And we're to the point where now there's going to be the banks are starting to crash again. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
Yeah. Silicon
now
Valley Bank. Yeah.
Bro Khan is tweeting out that we got to find a way to save this bank in Silicon Valley. And I'm like, really? We got to find a way. How about Bill Gates and finds a way? He could fund that bank with a couple of $1 billion. Why do we got to do it? How about Jimmy,
with this perfect example.
How about those guys fund this fucking bank if Silicon Valley needs a bank so fucking bad?
Jimmy, with this example that you bring up about Ro Khanna, where the progressives or so-called progressive have clearly shown their asses that they're not left, let's now but let's include this term, the Bernie Sanders industrial complex. So basically the media that's still kind of left media and independent media that still kind of pushes this narrative. When the squad and elected progressives have been clearly shown to be liars and not socialists, what do you make of the Bernie Sanders industrial complex that continues to push this, that looks the other way when they, break a strike? Like, what do you make of them still hanging on to this idea?
Why do you guys act like the people who agree with you on 95% of the things are the problem?
That's what they say all the time.
They're not the problem. It's actually that clip that you played at the beginning of the show. I was like, wow, that guy really knows what he's talking about. It is until people give up faith in the system, they're not going to get in the streets. They're not going to shut things down. It's when you have given up in the system. And so what Bernie Sanders and having progressives, and I'm not the first person to say this, by the way, they've been saying this for a while, and I just caught on to the smart people who have been saying that it's actually worse off having those people inside government, inside the Democratic Party, because it gives people false hope that they can get something done for themselves through the system. And it's just amazing how little Bernie Sanders. I mean, it would be much better off having someone in the presidency that Bernie Sanders could actually fight against and was willing to use his leverage against. Right. But he won't use his leverage again, to get health care. He won't use his leverage against Joe Biden to get anything, minimum wage, health care. I don't know what the F is going on. I mean, I do know what's going on. And so he's been doing it his whole life. Right. And he's willing to bend the knee to the war machine, Bernie Sanders. And so he's a war pig. And then he shames other people who try to protest, peace activists who protest him. And it's really disgusting. And so when you get to the left of the Democratic Party, as you are, as I am, they call you right wing. I've seen them call you guys right wing, right?
I saw that. Yeah.
Now we're right wing rights now. They smear anyone as that if they do not support going through the Democratic Party, if they're critical of Bernie, you get smeared as a right winger. Meanwhile, they're supporting the guy who's funding the border industrial complex more. You got Bernie who punched the ball on Ukraine. They are unapologetic war pigs. Their votes are directly complicit with the boom in the military industrial complex, and that is a fact.
Was Bernie on board for the mandates?
I believe so. That was one of those issues they try not to talk about a lot. Just like Ukraine, they try to dodge Ukraine all the time. That's one of the things I don't know what Bernie's position that he said often on a particular issue. And what a lot of people are forgetting about the Syria vote, because now people saying AOC and the squad voted to leave Syria. They forget the fact that AOC and the squad voted against lifting the Syrian sanctions. So they knew that the right wing would fight against that, but they're complicit with keeping the sanctions in place. These people are not doing their best. They are not on their side. They chose a side. And we are further away from Medicare for all than we ever been. Like it's not like they're trying and not getting it accomplished. You have Bernie that actively ignoring outside movements. You have these people who are in love with electoral politics who are ignoring the actual work it takes to create change. So, and I give you props for this as well, because you're one of the few big channels I see that actually cover worker strike back. And the criticism that I have, because you had Shama Sawan on, you had an interview with her. The criticism I have of these people who are super in love with electoral politics is that when you focus all your energy on these stupid vanity projects like Marianne Williamson, you don't focus on mutual aid and organizing. And then the same people like the Vanguard, for example, say, well, the reason we didn't cover worker strike back is because we didn't know about it. Well, the reason you didn't know about it because you guys are so busy kissing the boots of Marianne Williamson and Crystal Ball in them. So we need a movement that actually focus, that actually working on the outside. But Bernie, AOC, and the squad, they hate the outside game. So what do you make of that? And this to your earlier point, I want to throw this in here as well because there's a lot that you said earlier. They get upset and they hate the Rage Against the War Machine rally, and they advocate against people organizing with libertarians. But I was just at Worker Strike Back. I gave a speech at Worker Strike Back. I spoke to Shama and many other people at Worker Strike Back that told me they reached out to these people. And all the boutique left, all the elected progressives ignored them. So, Jimmy, what does that mean? That means they say they don't support the Rage Against the War Machine rally because they will never organize with those deplorables over there, the libertarians over there. But they also don't organize with socialist alternatives. So they don't organize with socialists. They don't organize with libertarians. Who do they organize with? Jimmy, you guys have anything you want to add to that? We get to some stories.
No, I'll let Jimmy chime in on that one. Go ahead.
No, I don't see them organizing to do shit except the last. I mean, they'll do a fake sleep in on the Capitol steps to pretend get moratorium on rent, but they won't actually do something when it actually counts. And yeah, it's amazing to see a lot of people use their anti-war organizations. Like I was really disappointed in Code Pink that they proved that they weren't really serious about. I mean, as organizations, certain individuals, Medea Benjamin actually showed up to the rally and tweeted about it, and tweeted out videos and pictures from the rally. But you can't be serious about ending a war. It's like if the fireman shows up at your house, right? It's like, you got a hose, we got a fire. We're going to talk about all the rest of that shit later, and they got a nuclear weapon. We got fucking capitalist maniacs provoking two nuclear powers at once. Let's get a hose. You got a hose? Let's do it. And we'll talk about all that other shit later. And so that's what, that's how you organized against, that's how Christian Smalls organized against Amazon, right? You got to do it that way. It's like, hey, you want to be with me against the man? All right, that's all I need to know. Let's be you're with me for each other, and we're economic. And that's why that's the high. And I'm not saying that racism isn't a problem. I'm not saying that anti-LGBTQ sentiment that we don't need to stick up. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the hyper focus on those things alone is because the Democratic Party has abandoned you economically. And so that in lieu of doing that, they've got to ramp up that other stuff. They have to talk about abortion, even though they won't codify it into law when they have a chance, because that's the kind of stuff they have to run on. So that's why they have to keep us hating half the country, as if half the country that elected Barack Obama twice somehow got racist or something more racist. And it's like, that's because that's what they want to focus on, right? And I don't think in my lifetime the country has gotten a lot less racist. I lived through the election of Harold Washington in Chicago, and it's the exact thing. It's the more interaction you have with other people, the more you break down your stupid ideas about each other. And Harold Washington, I came from the south side of Chicago, southwest side, super racist. And they were super Democrat. And then Harold Washington won the nomination to be the mayor of Chicago. And all of a sudden, all those Democrats voted for a Republican, right? But not enough of them, but most of them. But that wasn't enough to win. And so Harold Washington became the first black mayor of Chicago, and people were scared to death. Oh my God, the blacks are going to take over. They're going to take over. And so people in my neighborhood were scared. And I was always, the opposite. I was always like, I was always a big, I campaigned for Jesse Jackson and shit like that, right? I was, just because I think I always have an anti-authoritarian in me, and so whoever was the most anti-authoritarian, I would go towards, right? And so, and I was against all that racism stuff, but I noticed in my own neighborhood that by the end of Harold Washington being mayor for a couple of years, and he actually accomplished things, like he got the snow plowed, and he got the garbage picked up, and he got other things taken care of in the city that people wanted, that out of their government, and things actually got a little better, and people actually acknowledged it. Like people who were afraid of him, people who were racist, and then they're like, yeah, you know what, we were afraid, but it wasn't so bad, and he actually got things done, and he was a Democrat, and blah blah blah. And it was so they abandoned working people, and they want to fucking they want to make people hate each other because of race.
Mm-hmm.
People who claim to be fighting it, they love it, right? Just like the Democrats love that they lost abortion, because now they got something to run on. They're exactly the same. They serve exactly the same people. They're crushing the exact same workers. It doesn't matter if it was Joe Biden or Donald Trump. They both would have crushed that fucking railroad strike. You and I know it.
Yep.
And so that's the real thing, and they don't want you to talk about that. They want you to talk about LGBTQ and bathrooms and gender affirming surgery and all that. They want you to focus on every other thing.
They hurt our movement so much. They actually hurt our movement so much, Jimmy, because we covered this on Nick and CJ before. If you ask the black community what they care about, they don't care about all this like individual racism that goes on. They care more about structural racism. And in this poll that was done, they said black people we don't care if you have ignorant beliefs. To be honest, we assume you guys do, and to proven otherwise. We just care about how the system is ran. So in these polls, black people say they want to focus more on structural racism. Then when you ask white people, Latinos, and other people, they don't focus on structural racism. They just care about doing nonsense virtue signal stuff. And that's where I stand. And this is what annoys me about these white saviors on the boutique left, who want us to not associate with certain people because this person's a racist, this person's a racist. Okay, you, sir and ma'am, who voted for Jim Crow Joe, what gives you the benefit of the doubt? And I know that makes people uncomfortable, but I live on a prove me basis. I kind of assume it to proven otherwise. If you show that you want to stand in solidarity with me for healthcare, ending the wars, fighting for stuff that benefit my community, I assume you're on the good right side. If you're voting for Jim Crow Joe and Democrats and attacking grassroots action, guess what I'm gonna assume about you? You have no moral high ground over the rednecks who I live next to. I live in Missouri, guys. I have a mix of white liberals and white conservatives. I have a good poll on this. And the people who are usually the most rude, the most racist in my time are white liberals. And that is what get me blocked when I say that, when I burst that bubble, because it's real. I got some stories. You guys, CJ, you can do quick announcements, but anything you guys want to add before I can do some stories real quick?
Yeah, let me do a quick announcement since we do have me here, or actually just I can ask this question as an intermission, a question because it was a question from the audience, and that is you had Shama Sawant on to talk about the worker strike. Nick went out to participate in the event for the worker strike. Do you feel this could be like an idea, not the idea? I'm not putting that sort of pressure on worker strike, but this sort of idea we're organizing around uh class, around unions, around labor, regardless of political party. Do you think this idea that Shama Sawant would or can produce more results than going through the Democratic Party?
Oh, that's no doubt. She's, you know, she. I remember the first time I talked to Shama, she told me, she really opened my eyes, even more than Bernie, uh, at the time. So she told me that, you know, Jimmy, she's the one who told me that the road for progressives inside the Democratic Party leads to a graveyard, and I'm like, come on, and I didn't really understand what she meant. And then she said, you know, when I got the $15 minimum wage passed here in Seattle, she said we had to fight a Democratic mayor. We had to fight a Democratic council to get that. You're good. So he goes, she's told me, she goes, you know, when you're going to get Medicare for all, if you're going to get it, you're going to have to fight Democrats to get it. If you're going to get, when you get a minimum wage, you have to fight Democrats. If you're going to get whatever you're going to get, if you're going to have to stop the war, you have to fight Democrats to stop the war. So yeah, of course, I think it's good that she's, you know, I think it certainly could be way more effective to not present yourself as being aligned with either party. I don't think Christian Smalls did that when he organized, aligned himself with a particular party. I think we have to align ourselves with issues. And if we can align ourselves with issues, then that's what gives, you know, when people who normally disagree come together, everyone knows that's what gives things its power. And, you know, again, I'm white. But I grew up in a racist neighborhood. I grew up when racism was more accepted, but it's been. I think the country's been going the other way, and I think the election of Barack Obama twice, and a lot of those people who voted for him and then voted for Bernie Sanders and then voted for Trump, and you can't deny that happened in Iowa. That did. People who voted for Bernie Sanders and voted for Trump, right? They wanted to vote for someone who was the most outsider to the establishment and someone who actually was talking to workers. And Trump, of course, everything he was saying was just hogwash. But the Democratic Party and the establishment, which now favors the Democratic Party, and they had to build Trump up to be a bigger monster than he actually is. I mean, the establishment loved Donald Trump. He's guest hosting Saturday Night Live, and they gave him a hit series on NBC for 10 straight years. The culture loved Donald Trump, right? And then when it became, they had to build him up to be Hitler and the Grand Wizard at the same time, so they can have something to distract you from the fact that they've turned their back on the working class. And that's what it is. Donald Trump is just a loudmouth Yankee fucking carnival barker, a game show host who didn't even really want to be president in the first fucking place.
He was surprised too. He was surprised too on election night. He was like, "What? I won?"
Yeah, and so and they can't, and so they never did the autopsy. You remember when the Republicans lost to Barack Obama? They lost to a black guy with a Muslim name twice, and so they actually, the second time, they had to do what they considered was an autopsy on what the problem is and why they're not connecting with the country. And so the Democrats never did that. They just went Russia. And so Russia, and they've never stopped. And then they started and now it's Trump. It was just Trump and Russia and white supremacy and all that stuff. And, you know, you would think it was 1950 instead of what it is, instead of the aftermath of 2 terms of a black president who didn't do shit for fucking black people.
Nothing whatsoever. I
can attest to that. I was trying to find a tweet to Jimmy's point. It was tweeted out by Call to Activism. You know, that big Democrat Twitter account. And they tweeted out, I think it was a few weeks ago. I couldn't find it in time, but it was, I still can't wrap my head around how we went from Barack Obama to Donald Trump. Oh, they're tweeting it out 6 to 7 years later. And Jimmy, the point is, I wish I could find the tweet, but I couldn't find it. But they're still saying this stuff. I can't believe we went from Obama to Trump. They still don't get it. They still haven't done a diagnosis of how they lost the working class.
I think Jimmy tweeted about that. Did you quote? Yeah, I think I retweeted your tweet.
And I did a segment about it.
I wish I could find it, but it's funny.
Shama, I did a segment about it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm very hyper aware of that. But that, you know, when I was at the Young Turks, and so I was I was close with Ben Mankiewicz, who's a fantastic guy. I love Ben Mankiewicz, and so I would go to parties with all these Hollywood elite, right? Because he's the host of Turner Classic Movies, and he knows everybody, and his family's Hollywood royalty. And I remember right after Trump, man, they were just convinced that people voted for Trump because of racism, and we got to fight racism. And I was just like, "Are you guys fucking crazy?" And I thought it was just jagoff. And then I'd walk over, and some other jagoff would say the same thing. And I'm like, "You guys are fucking nuts!" And then I did have fucking arguments at these parties. And it wasn't too long before I couldn't get elected. I couldn't get invited to any of those parties. I stopped getting invited to my friend Ben's parties because I was bad to be known with around Jimmy Dore, who doesn't support the Democratic Party and stuff, because that I have to, by default, I have to support the Republicans in their mind. And that was bad for, everybody's image. So, but that's really what they thought. They had no other. And so it goes back to the basic problem of the left in America, is that it's not connected to workers. It's connected like, oh, so Samantha Bee was just on The View, and she's on there, and so now she has to pretend to be the biggest champion of women in the world because she got caught calling another woman a cunt on her show. Remember when she did that? And so then she's still apologizing for it, just like Jon Stewart is still apologizing for saying the lab leak theory was true. So she was on The View, and so now she's pretending, she's pretending. She's super focused on championing women because she got in trouble for saying the C word. And so she was saying, "Oh, I would love to see, a late night host as a female. It's such a tragedy that it isn't a." And I'm like, see, that's what they're focused on. They're not focused on, wouldn't it be great if women had health care? Wouldn't it be great if women, right? Wouldn't it be great if women had access to education without going bankrupt? Wouldn't it be great if they had childcare and daycare and pre-care and kindercare and all that shit? Wouldn't it be great for women? No, it'd be great if a woman got a fucking executive position on a television show. That's all they think. So that's considered left in America. And you can see why people who we have a lot in common economically and a lot of in other ways would think the left, they don't want to have anything to do with the left, that's what the fucking left is, worried about all this bullshit of culture issues instead of economic issues. Well, the real left is, right? But this is the pretend left. This is the fucking professional managerial class left that dominates the media. And so that's what people think and that's why most people don't fucking vote, right? Because most people see that if they don't speak to them, and it's all noise, and their life just keeps getting worse. But the people that need to rise up are getting fooled by people like Bernie Sanders and the squad into still thinking that keep voting, keep doing it. And then they never tell them what to actually do.
Yes.
They never tell them that what the truckers did in Canada is what you got to do. You got to shut down capitalism. And when you do, you can demand shit. You can bring a government to its knees. Well, they quickly revealed themselves that the real Nazis was the government in Canada, because they then froze their bank accounts and they called them terrorists. And they said they were violent and they said they were Nazis. And we found out that's just part of the CIA playbook now, that's exactly what they do when they actually are about to grab power. They do all that. That's what they did. And it's come out that there was absolutely no violence. There was the most peaceful rallies. And of course, the cops lied about them. And of course, the only Nazi flag was by a guy who was an infiltrator, was all made up. And that's all. And so what those people, and by the way, the truckers were vaccinated at a higher rate than the general population in Canada. They weren't protesting medicine. They were protesting bullshit authoritarianism. And they were right.
I was suspect about that, Jimmy, when I saw the same tactics they used against the trucker protest that they used against the George Floyd protest. And it was where I saw the leftists use the same tactics, where they'll focus on small individual events that started by agent provocateurs and infiltrators. And they did. I've been studying these tactics for a long time as someone who co-founded 10 Demands. Like I know these tactics that they do to discredit protests and make them seem violent. The same strategy they did to George Floyd, they did to the trucker protest. Label them violent, label them thugs, but they did it from a liberal point of view as well. Go ahead.
And they called them white supremacists.
Yes. Yeah. So I saw many people on the left fall for that same strategy where they was doing that. And I am extremely suspect of these people because, to my point I made earlier before, they want to cancel so many people of the working class, but they are extremely lenient to the bourgeoisie. They're extremely lenient to the professional managerial class. So when Bernie funds the war, oops, Bernie made a mistake.
He
But
made it-
God forbid an activist tweet something bad 3 years ago. If an activist said something bad 3 years ago on Twitter, they'd be canceled. But AOC can fucking vote for Capitol Police funding, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's and this is the kind of up, down, top from the top thinking that does not make sense to me, where they trust the leaders, but they want to distrust activists. And any other thoughts you guys have? And
Yeah.
I want to get to another story here.
The
Go ahead.
Democratic Party has become a cult. And that's not hyperbole. And Jon Stewart just experienced that. And Russell Brand is experiencing that. And so if you tell a truth that's out, so no kidding, Jon Stewart, one of my most popular videos ever in the history of my show was a video I just did last week about Jon Stewart. He got canceled. I didn't know this. So when he went on 18 months ago, I guess it was, when he went on Stephen Colbert and he made fun of the lab leak, like how could you say it's not from this lab, right? And he did it hilariously. It was a really tight comedy bit. And Stephen Colbert called him a right wing. He said, "How long you been working with Senator Johnson?" and shit like that.
What?
And he cut the legs out from underneath him and and Jon Stewart had to like yell at him. And at one point he got off the couch and just went to the camera because Stephen Colbert kept trying to kneecap his comedy bit because he knows you can't say this. He couldn't, and there's Jon Stewart saying it. And so after that, Jon Stewart just revealed, I guess, on his show a week or two ago. That's how I found out about it. He released a video where he was called a racist for that. He said that the backlash was swift and was brutal. And he said that I was called a racist, and I was called a white supremacist. I was called a right winger. And I was like, welcome to my world, John. You went outside the cult. You told the truth that your cult leaders don't want people to know. And that's the worst thing. You can lie all day long. People get upset if you lie. People get upset when you tell a truth, and that's who gets censored. People who telling a truth that the establishment doesn't want, like Julian Assange, that people like Edward Snowden, those are the people who are really getting censored, right? People who are telling the truth about COVID narrative and the vaccines. Those are the people who are, it's not, so Jon Stewart got a taste of it. And I was been trying to figure out, why would he pin a Nazi on pin a medal on a Nazi at Disney World, right?
That's horrible.
And then not talk about it. Why would he give tongue baths to Condoleezza Rice and Hillary Clinton when he got him right? Why would he do, what was the point of him doing that? They didn't get anything out of it. They didn't break any news. There was nothing. It was just and out of that. And then when he came out and he was talking about how people were telling him, wow, I'm fucking done with you. That's what he said. He goes, I couldn't believe it. People are like, I'm fucking done with you. And I'll never. And I'm like, yeah, that you went outside the cult, asshole. Yeah. And now instead of calling it what it is, a cult, it's like, why can't we just figure out how to talk about the fucking cult? And you went outside it, and that's what he was doing. He got his mind right. That's why he pinned a medal on a Nazi. That's why he did that tongue bath to Hillary Clinton and Condoleezza Rice. And he's been trying to get back in good graces. And he literally said, he goes, it was like I said, lock up Hillary on my forehead. So that's who you're talking about. That's the cult, that cult of Hillary, that whole thing that they did the same thing. So anybody who goes outside of it is they called Bernie Sanders a Russian and a misogynist. For fuck's sake, don't you think they're going to do that to you? And so that's it. And so it would be helpful so I got 1 million views on that video. I also got like 800,000 or 900,000 views on a video I did about Tim Robbins, the actor who came out and apologized for being such an asshole to people and saying we got to stop. That also got almost 1 million views. So it's not like people aren't hungry. Oh, also when Woody Harrelson did this SNL thing where he said the conspiracy of the drug cartels, they bought the media and the government, and you can't get out of your house until you take their products. It's crazy stuff. And it's exactly what happened. It's just an observation. That's just exactly what happened. And so that also did very well for me. And one of my so people are hungry for this. I don't know if it's people who want to see what happens to people, because I think a lot of, what Noam Chomsky taught us in manufacturing consent is what the media does is it makes you think the thoughts you're thinking you're the only one thinking those thoughts, because your thoughts are never reflected back to you in the media. So when it does get reflected back in the media, like, oh my God, so people are like, hey, I want to see what happens when people actually have their own thoughts. Like I have them, but I would never share them because let's see what happened. I don't know if that's the intrigue, or I don't know why those videos are so popular, but they are very popular. And it's good to see. It's good to see that people like Jon Stewart. It's good to see that it happened to him. But it's bad that he won't call it out. He won't. And I said, hey, John, if you think it was bad what happened to you when you told the truth about the Wuhan virus, imagine what they do to you if you told the truth about Ukraine.
and to your point, I think liberals and the establishment really underestimate the amount of people in their cult. They do a great job controlling the flow of information. But even if you look at the highest rated news shows, even the highest rated liberal pundit, that's a very small percentage of the population that is buying into that. Most of the people are just tuning this out because they know they're being fed with nonsense propaganda. Like, how many people actually ride or die with Chris Hayes? How many people actually ride or die with Rachel Maddow? That's just not what's happening. The small amount of ratings they do get are the people who just have the TV on. I know people like that who not ride or die Rachel Maddow, but they will just have the TV on because they just like to have news in the background. Like, there's not a large amount of people in their cult. And on Twitter, we know 80% of Twitter is on bots. All these Washington Post journalists, New York Times journalists, they are boosted by bots. It's super obvious who's on the good algorithm, who's on the bot algorithm, who's not. And that's to your point. That's why I think when you have videos that challenge narrative, they get a lot of views, and that's why there's been a coordinated effort with the government and social media to crack down on that kind of stuff. But with that said, I actually want to get your thoughts on this. I know we probably have just a little bit of time with you, but I want to get to some stories. I want to get your thoughts on this. I saw the story earlier. We're shifting focus on foreign policy. And one of the main things that I've been covering is the new shift to a multipolar world. And this story, I did a story yesterday, which was my favorite 2023. I don't know if you saw this. Last year, I said my favorite was when George W. Bush did that fraudulent slip, admitted his war crimes. And then yesterday, my favorite story is when the United States refuse to refer Russia to war crimes in The Hague because they don't want the United States to be next, right? So that now I'll be honest. Now I got that. That's my favorite story. Now this one is another one as well because this is horrible news for the United States and for Israel. And so let's pull these tweets up. And I'm interested in your take in this as well, Jimmy. So China negotiating peace in the Middle East, kind of, right? So I don't know if you saw this, Jimmy.
Oh yeah, I did. I've been saying this on my show for a while. It's like,
yeah.
So, doing what they're doing, trying to start a proxy war with Russia through Ukraine, and it's an economic war, which is why they blew up the pipeline, and then doing what they're doing with China also. I was like, so they're pushing China and Russia together, also with Saudi Arabia. And I'm like, so there's no way this is not going to damage the petrodollar. And if people don't understand what the petrodollar is, the reason why we're in Yemen helping commit a genocide is because Saudi Arabia, the largest world's oil exporter, has agreed with the United States to make other people buy their oil only in US dollars. So whatever their currency is, they have to first convert it to US dollars, and then Saudi Arabia will sell them the oil. So every country in the world always had US dollars on hand since they have to buy oil that way. And so then they just start using it for everything else, right? So that's how the US dollar became the reserve currency of the world, which artificially props up our economy. And so when they started doing this shit and pushing Russia together, and I'm like, how do I see, if I see this coming? I know they do, and they don't give a shit because they're fucking psychopaths who just want to make more money in the long term. They don't care if our entire economy crashes. If their company is going to make more money, if their weapons manufacturer company or their Wall Street bank or whatever it is going to make, they don't care about the entire country. So that is going to fuck and then once that's done, this is moving us way closer. They're starting now to sell oil in other denominations, in the Chinese yuan, I think is what it's called. And I think they've also sold it to other countries, maybe India or Italy. They've also started to sell it in other denominations, right? And so that's bad. And now there's going to be this BRICS, right? Which is the other. Yes. There's going to be another power center, an economic power center. So we're losing, and this is all because they're doing it on purpose. So that's how controlled the government is of the United States by the military industrial complex. That's how controlled it is, because it's acting irrationally against our own country's interests. And that's what's leading to BRICS and those other countries coming together economically in a coalition. And once the petrodollar goes away, it's going to be really bad in the United States.
Yes, and that's why I've been debating myself on, like, did they do this on purpose, or this is just pure incompetence? Because these neoliberals in the Biden administration, they had this goal, and if you watch like Morning Joe and MSNBC, they give Biden this false credit all the time. They say Joe Biden has done this amazing job uniting the world against Russia, uniting the world against China. Meanwhile, it's the exact opposite. The exact opposite. So while the West is focusing on bomb, Israel's focusing on bomb, China is out there establishing peace. And the whole time, what's humiliating about this, when you read into the story, the United States, Saudi Arabia was in communication with Biden and saying, like, yeah, we're doing this, by the way. And the Biden administration was appalled, but they have no political capital on the world stage because, you know, Saudi Arabia literally embarrassed Biden on the global stage by not showing any interest in him, but showing interest in Xi. So this is a giant deal. This is a sign of the multipolar world that's developing now. And to your point on BRICS, I want to show you this. Just skip ahead a little bit. You have Lindsey Graham. I don't know if you saw this. Lindsey Graham now saying that we need to send troops to Mexico to fight the cartels. You guys know what AMLO and Mexico saying now? They want to join BRICS. They submitted an application for BRICS. So now Mexico, who have been critical of the Biden regime in Ukraine, who've been critical of the Biden regime in Cuba, who is now looking to join BRICS, now all of a sudden they want to send military to Mexico. So I'll read this headline. I won't give you. Go ahead, Jimmy. Go ahead.
It's about time we bring their people some democracy.
Yeah, so I want to. I'll just read this headline, and this is why you've seen this unhinged anti-China propaganda. There's a propaganda report clip I'm gonna do maybe on Monday from MSNBC. They really, really are extremely desperate with their anti-China rhetoric, and this is why they're gonna tell you bunch of bullshit reasons. But China is dismantling the United States on the global stage. Brokered a peace deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia, which directly harms the petrodollar, as Jimmy laid out, in Israel. Big blow to them. Now just read this. Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Algeria, Argentina, Mexico, and Nigeria are among the latest countries that are interested in joining BRICS. Now, the last tweet I shared, and I'm going to get Jimmy back in here, this is from Margaret Kimberly, a friend of the show. After talks in Beijing, now this is more talks about China and Iran. The United States fucks around blowing up pipelines. So as Biden is blowing up pipelines, China is doing diplomacy. This is part of the reason why Xi Jinping was in Saudi Arabia recently. Meanwhile, we have Biden and his gang of fanatical maniacs bringing us just seconds to midnight on the doomsday clock. So this shows how the neoliberal regime in the Biden administration has been so incompetent, unhinged, or they probably did on purpose. They lost all their allies, and China is swooping up and taking over U.S. influence. Anything you want to add to this? And I have one more story on Mexico and BRICS. But Jimmy and CJ, anything else you guys want to add before I move on?
Well, just that what everything they tried to scare us about Trump doing, they're doing. They're starting. They're saber rattling with two nuclear powers. They got, and who actually has their finger on the button? It certainly isn't fucking demented Joe, and it isn't Kamala. So I wonder who actually does pull that trigger. But anyway, and now they're dividing the world against us. All the stuff they said Trump was doing, they're actually doing. They're implementing, and so whatever they said about Trump, it's them. And it's amazing to see, and it's amazing to see the stranglehold they have on the information that people get about what's happening in the world. You know, you say that Americans are the most propagandized people in the world, and that's bad enough. But the thing is, they don't know they are. It's like, you know, if they knew they were being propagandized, they could maybe try to think for themselves, but they actually think what Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon or Sean Hannity, what they're telling them is actually the truth. And the only time someone does tell the truth, like for whatever reason, Tucker Carlson tells the truth about Syria, Venezuela, Ukraine, and lets me tell the truth about China. And the reason is he doesn't have any advertisers. They already got rid of him, right?
Yeah.
And so he's got Mike the Pillow Guy and catheter commercials, and so they can't do anything else to him. But his show is so popular because he sometimes tells the truth about that stuff. And of course, then they have to make him out to be a monster, like they did to Donald Trump. Just like they had to make Donald Trump worse than he was, scarier than he was, bigger and more powerful than he was. Donald Trump had no interest in governing. When COVID hit, if he was actually this crazy dictator, he would have been started dictating shit and taking control. He didn't. He said, I don't want to fucking do this. I'll work on the facts. You guys do it however you want in your own states. That's the opposite of what a dictator would do. Again, the guy's a game show host, but they have to build him up to be a monster, because then they couldn't get you to vote for a demented guy and a Weekend at Bernie's who's always been a tool of the military industrial complex in Wall Street and an enemy of the workers. Like, there's no bigger enemy of the workers or racist, by the way, than fucking Joe Biden. It's the reason why black and brown people are locked up at much higher rates than white people is because of him. And he says you should have compassion for his drug addict son, which I do. Why doesn't I don't what makes them monsters is that they don't advocate for the unjailing of the people who Joe Biden made sure was in jail for doing shit that his kid did. He would throw away the key for people like his own kid. But when it's his own kid, he has compassion for him. But the rest, but he got paid, right, by the criminal the jails, right? What is it called? The
prison industrial complex.
Prison industrial complex. He got paid to advocate for that, so he did. Just like he got paid to make sure you can't declare bankruptcy if you get sick.
Right.
All that stuff. He got paid to advocate against people. Your government is your enemy. And so when MSNBC and CNN tells you Joe Biden's looking out for you, that's because they're owned by your enemies, the oligarchy. The handful of billionaires run fucking everything in this country. Don't think that they don't. And when the meetings and when people get together to figure out how to screw over people, it's called a session of Congress. That's when they get together. They're not there writing laws on how to help workers or how to get you. They're there implementing the agenda of the fucking Congress, the same of the billionaire class, the same people who own the media, and that's why people are so fucking stupid. At least it's been in the Soviet Union, citizens knew they were being propagandized. In America, they think they're being told the fucking truth, which is why they're being turned against their own goddamn neighbor constantly. We have to stop turning against our fucking neighbor and start joining with them and in arm in arm in class struggle against those motherfuckers. And don't let Democrats or Republicans tell you different.
And I think that's why, Jimmy, let me just do a follow-up. I think that's the reason why you're such a target, and RBN is becoming more and more of a target. In particular, it's showing that we're becoming a target because of this Marianne Williamson thing. But you over the years have been a target because you specifically advocate against the Democratic Party, and that's it. You haven't changed over the years. I did a stream called Obsession, and it was about how Sam Cedar is obsessed with you, and it's because all of that, the boutique left, all of the pseudo left, they're obsessed not because your policies change, it's because you went from saying, okay, let's try this, go through this Democratic Party, to saying, fuck that shit, we're not doing that shit no more. Now you have become an enemy. You're the same person. You had a show called Aggressive Progressive, but now you're too aggressive. Now it's like it's a joke. It is literally a joke. But what has happened is they have decided to latch on to the Democratic Party, and you said, fuck that shit, I'm jumping off and going with the people. And now you are a target. But how has it been for several years to be sort of the target of saying, hey, I'm not for the Democratic Party, or if it's been a few years, how has it been to be this sort of almost like sole target, or at least in independent media terms, of all of the wrath of them coming after you for not wanting to go with the Democratic Party? How has that been, if you had to describe it? Has it been a walk in the park or something else? How would you characterize it?
It was surprising to me, and that sometimes it was overwhelming. But what I've learned now is that when I catch that guy, because I know my heart and I know my intention, And so when I catch that kind of flack, like when they do hit pieces on me, I celebrate them, right? So I had quickly learned that, oh no, it's because I actually am getting something done. I'm actually bothering someone. When people inside, what's that woman who was the Center for American Progress? When she used to tweet
Neera
about
Tanden?
Neera
Yeah.
Tanden,
Yeah.
would tweet about specific videos about me and then pretend and talk about
That's an honor.
how hateful they were, but she doesn't watch them. Like, well, how do you know they're hateful if you don't watch them? And so I knew that I was making a dent, right? And so but the thing that really bothers me is that like people I used to be really friendly with in comedy, and we were on the same team. We were Obama voters, and sure we had our problems with the Democratic Party, but we knew we weren't right wingers and all that stuff. Well, those people just got totally fooled by that Trump derangement syndrome and Russiagate, and they think that's all real. And so they all think that I'm doing whatever I'm doing for money. And my show was already, especially before, then people think whatever people disagree with you on now, they just immediately say you're doing it for money. Meanwhile, Rachel Maddow makes fucking $100,000 a day. And somehow I'm the one doing YouTubers because they sell T-shirts, that thing everyone does. Anyway, so to me that's the hardest part, right? And I lost people over, but every time you lose someone, like I lost Bernie supporters for sure when I started to tell them the truth about Bernie. And I remember I used to block them, right, on Twitter, and then someone told me, they said, no, you have to give them a chance to come back because they're gonna realize. And then I was like, oh, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe they're just, so I have to keep the door open. And so when they get there's going to come a time, hopefully, when they'll see through it and they'll understand. And more people see through Bernie Sanders. And so that's the hard part. And then when COVID happened, but it's me being against the Democratic narrative. So I challenged the COVID narrative, and that's just immediately seen as right wing. And Jon Stewart said, oh, we found out that the lab leak theory was right wing and the wet market theory was left wing. Yeah, that's a cult, John. That's fucking crazy cult. Call it what it is, right? That's what that is. And so anyway, so I'm outside the cult, and a lot of those people are really funny. I had 20 years of fun with them. And now they look at me like I'm a traitor to them and to their party. And I am. I'm not in their party, but I'm not a traitor to my ideals. I've always kept the same radical left ideas. It's a radical to be for Medicare for all. They never talk about it. It's a radical to be against the wars and tell the truth about Ukraine. It's a radical to do all these things. In this, and so that's the only part that bothers me. But now when they come at me, when they write hit pieces on me, it gives me more street cred, and I celebrate it because I know I'm actually doing something. And it's when they stop calling me a conspiracy theorist or a right winger is when I know I lost it, and I'm not pushing back against the establishment enough, because that's exactly what it is. The establishment, both parties have turned their backs on workers. And now that they emphasize all these things that are problems in America, but they make them way bigger than they are. And that's all they want you to talk about. And again, identity politics is putting someone from a marginalized group in charge of a problem instead of fucking fixing it, which is exactly what Pete Buttigieg is. He's got two things going for him. He's gay and he's really gay. That's the only thing he has going for him. And the guy that he couldn't fix the pothole in South Bend, Indiana, and then we put him in charge of transportation. And then when we have the biggest fucking supply chain meltdown in the history of the world, he takes a month off to go have a baby. Like, what the fuck? And I'm for parental leave for everybody except that fucking
except that motherfucker. So I just want to get your take on this last story, and I'll get you out here, Jimmy, because there was the big Silicon Valley bank crash, which is the biggest crash since 2008. And I want you to take on this because you already got these capitalist fucks already coming out and say we must do this bailout of the bank. So here's Mark Cuban. I'll show you guys this. This is Mark Cuban. The tragedy of Silicon Valley Bank is that it's not the wealthy taking the hit. It's the thousands of companies who borrow from SVB and were required to keep their cash in SVB. Those entrepreneurs and their employees and vendors are feeling the pain. and they are who the Fed should protect. So it's funny how whenever the working class struggles, millions go homeless. You have 500,000 that could have been saved under the pandemic. We have healthcare. That's not worthy of a bailout and money to the working class, but it's always when the bankers. So I'm just doing a quick crash here so we can get Jimmy take on here. But
Yeah, he's worried about the little guy.
Yeah.
He's worried about the little guy. Well, again, if you're so worried about the little guy, Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos could fund about 10 fucking banks right now. And why don't they do it? If it's so important and they're all philanthropists, and Bill Gates is going to give all his money away anyway, we worry that. Yeah. Well, why not fucking do it? Why do you got to keep going back to the government?
And a few more things I want to show you because obviously this is the result of white collar criminals and these capitalists that keep getting these bailouts. And this is why I'm a Marxist. I think we need to seize these these assets, especially when you had the 2008 financial crash. Like, the best I can do for you capitalists is you get one chance. The second this crash happens, it's ours. But that's just my position. This is the CEO, Silicon Valley Bank CEO, Greg Becker. Remember that name. Greg Becker sold 3.6 million of the company's stock under a trading plan less than 2 weeks before the firm disclosed extensive losses that led to their failure. Do you guys think that's a coincidence? And then you had a ton of these
It's just like when Bill Gates sold all his stuff. So when he had stock in Moderna, he said about how the vaccine was great. It stops the virus. It does all these things. It's the greatest thing ever. And this is how we're going to end the pandemic. And we just got to get more people to take it and take. And then as soon as he cashed in his stock, he started saying, it's not really that good. It's not long acting. It doesn't stop transmission. It's mostly a disease of old people anyway, like the flu. Anyway, but you know what this new thing is? And I always got, and so it's the same. And it's and that's as soon as he got his, and so Bill Gates, who owns the media, we've done stories about how he's used $300 million to buy media and journalism around the world. He's the second biggest funder of the WHO, which YouTube used as their guidelines. We couldn't cross on YouTube. They used the WHO. Well, who's the funder of the WHO? Number 2 is Bill fucking Gates, ahead of countries. The first one, I think, is China, and then it's Bill Gates, then it's Germany, then it's the United States. It's like, what? And so now this is the guy picking criminals to run the fucking WHO, which is why that guy who's in bed with a terrorist organization in Ethiopia, for fuck's sake, he's the guy he's not even a doctor. He's a goddamn, right? Isn't he a veterinarian?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's how that whatever his name is. So so we're being run by Bill fucking Gates because he's got money in a goddamn vaccine stock. And then as soon as he cashes it out, he starts shitting on the stock.
Yeah, it's so fucking rigged. It's so out in the open too. But Bill Gates bought all the media out, so they know no one will call him out for that blatant extreme blatant. So this is another example of how the game is rigged. There's a few more receipts here. This is SVB. If you guys don't know, like, SVB is not giant, but they are one of the largest banks because they loan out to tech companies. So like in this one area, they pretty much run this shit in tech, right? And that's why you got all these people who are beholden to the tech industry that's calling for bailouts now. We can get to that here soon. This is from Forbes. This is how you know the game is rigged. And it says, you see, this is how you know the game is rigged. Proud to be on Forbes' annual rankings of America's best banks for the 5th straight year, Jimmy. And now it started that way, and now look how it ended.
Wow.
So, and there's more. There's more people in leadership, executives. Look, breaking before the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. These are the executives that sold their shares before it. And remember the name Gregory Becker. Actually, fuck it. I will introduce him now. Actually, hold on. I didn't share the tab. I keep forgetting to put the button. This is the tab I meant to share. These are the other executives that are selling their shares before this, as usual white collar crime shit that's going on, right? So now you have all these people who benefit from Silicon Valley that's calling for bailouts. The SVB bank crisis, and this is from Ro Khanna, is the lifeblood of the tech ecosystem, and Ro Khanna says they can't let the banks fail. And now here's Ro Neil Khanna again. This is tweet he sent yesterday. This morning, I reached out to both the White House and the Treasury Department to discuss the situation with Silicon Valley Bank. I emphasize the importance of doing whatever is legally permissible and appropriate to support the bank, which is central to the startup and tech economy. So not do whatever legally permissible to give people health care, to end the homelessness crisis. It's to help the bankers. And you guys think that Ro Khanna is coming from this position, from a neutral position? They're not the best we have. This is the last thing I'm going to share, and I give you guys final takes on this. Oh, shit. Let me, I lost it. Here it is.
I saw what you're gonna be bringing up, Nick, and I was amazed with that last tweet you're gonna show right here. I was amazed.
Here it is. Yeah, here it is. I got it now. So you guys know we got a lot of great comrades in RBN that keep us well informed. So Ro Khanna was tweeting this nonsense out, and lo and behold, the guy he bets against his own policies all the time. Like he's an advocate for healthcare. He'll have private health insurance stocks, weapon defense contractor stocks, even though he's fighting to end the wars apparently. So Ro Khanna is calling for a bailout because look who was a contributor to Ro Khanna, Greg Becker. You know the CEO who was caught selling his shares? Clown shit. It's more than this. This is the list of the contributions he's had. And then I got to send more screenshots. And if you go down this list of all the investments and stock that Ro Khanna have done with these people, he is directly financed by these people, and he does business with these people. It's corruption of the highest order. Not just Joe Manchin, guys. These are the progressives. Sorry, Jim, I know you want to chime in. That I had to share that receipt because Ro Khanna is as corrupt as the neoliberals, calling for a bailout for the industry that he's invested in. But Jimmy, CJ, anything that you got?
Go ahead, Jimmy.
On this? Exact same. So the reason why he's advocating for the bailout of that bank is the exact same reason why movie companies during COVID lockdowns were allowed to set up outside restaurants and right across the street from restaurants that had to close down their outside dining because of COVID. And they were made bankrupt and put out of business, while a movie company could set up a cafeteria right next door. And why is that? Because that movie company is financed by a bank. That movie production's financed by a bank that donates to the fucking Democratic Party, and that's why. Just like right now. So that's who, and that lady who owns her own restaurant is a small business owner. It isn't a big donor to the Democratic Party. So go fuck yourself. And so that's exactly this. And so people don't realize this is how government works. 101 now. It's like they think when they talk about corruption in government, they think like, Joe Biden got his kid a no-show job on an energy board in Ukraine, or Donald Trump got his kid a thing with Saudi Arabia. And no, that's regular corruption. We're talking about this is the real corruption. Ro Khanna out here advocating and do everything legally possible for a bank instead of doing everything legally possible for his constituents and the homeless and the workers and the students and the single mom. No, he's going to do that for that. And so that's because corruption work. That's how and nothing gets done. And that's why we're not taking care of. We could have ended homelessness 3-4 times over. Like I say, we could have ended homelessness, started it again, and then said we were just kidding, and then ended it again for the $100 billion we sent to fucking Ukraine. When I get on stage in front of comedy audiences in Los Angeles who don't know I'm coming, they intrinsically know that that's fucked up. I'll make that point about, hey, I don't care if they send $100 billion to Ukraine. Why don't they send $100 billion to America? How about $100 billion to California to get rid of these homeless? And people start cheering. They know it's fucked up, and they're doing it right in their faces. And
I said that in my speech as well. When I gave my speech at Worker Strike Back, she told me, this is not a socialist event. Like, this is a campus event. So there's going to be a lot of Democrats and there's going to be a lot of liberals in this audience that we're trying to win over. And one of the first things I said in my speech is I said, we send all this money to Ukraine. Meanwhile, we got people starving in the streets, and the crowd cheer. A liberal college campus, not trained audience. So people, to your point, I won't even finish, but to your point, people inherently know. You can just say that to non-brainwashed audiences, they would cheer because they know they're getting eyes. But go ahead, Jimmy. I want you to finish.
No, I think that was my there seems to be like there's going to be another financial meltdown that nobody's talking about, that other people seem to know about. It's coming. I think it's coming, and they don't know what to do. Isn't it fucked up that, hey, we're going to have to increase unemployment so we can get it get inflation down, or we have to increase inflation to get unemployment. It's like we have to inflict pain to this part of the economy so we can make this it's such a fucked up way to run things, and people don't, it doesn't bother them that built into capitalism are bust cycles twice every 10 years. There's going to be recessions and people are going to be laid off. This is no way to run a fucking railroad, man. I can't believe that we can't have more safeguards put in place. I know capitalism is going to rule the day, but Jesus Christ, man, they have officially figured out 100% how to keep the people who are going to rise up against corporations divided.
They got that
100%. You can't even get people to come together to try to stop a fucking nuclear war anymore, for Christ's sake. That's how much they've gotten people divided. And they have bullshit organizations like the DSA, which are filled with good people, but led by people who are infiltrators and compromised. And so that's why they never do anything or get anything done. Just like Bernie Sanders, he's on purpose compromised. Who knows what that fucking stuff is that they have on him that makes him do and go along with the slaughter of Ukrainians, hundreds of thousands, which is what he's doing. And Eisenhower said, for every gun and every bomb that's made, that's a child who doesn't get to eat. That's somebody who doesn't get to go to school. That's a book that doesn't get. So and he's going along with it. So that's the best of them. Well, they're fucking all horrible. And it's time that people lose their faith in this goddamn government and get out in the streets and do like the truckers. America, they don't know the difference between a freedom fighter and a trucker, right? They look at or a Nazi, right? They look at the truckers who are freedom fighters and call them Nazis, and they look at fucking literal Nazis and they call them freedom fighters. It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
So
but
anyway,
Jimmy, I appreciate your time. CJ, any last thoughts? I want to get Jimmy out here. Jimmy, any last thoughts? Anything you want to promote?
keep doing what you're doing, and you keep pushing against the establishment. The two-party is a uniparty, and we're the country's in way worse shape than people think. And people are ready. I think, to rise up. There's going to be something that's going to set it off, and when it happens, I'll be there.
Yeah. So once again, go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, I was just gonna say sort of my final words before Jimmy takes off. I have the same sort of assessment, Jimmy. It feels like this is different. I know people are fed up with the system. We've been fed up, but it feels like, Jimmy, I don't know if you kind of feel the same way. I'm not saying we're ready to run out in the streets, but it feels like different than 2020. It feels like people are really fed up, and I'm getting that from the real, like people who are non-establishment people, like I'm in that with Marianne Williamson, like you see it with Nina Turner. And I think it's because the people who are the most non-establishment just didn't come out. I mean, she made mistakes, but I'm just saying it's the people who you need to come out who are the most non-establishment, they're not for this milquetoast shit. And people are fed up with that. And you can sense it with Marianne Williamson, that there's people that just like, fuck this shit. I'm not going through this shit no more. So to your point, Jimmy, I feel that. Do you feel that, by the way, on your way out? Do you feel like it feels slightly different? Like a little bit more people are more like upset and done with this Democratic narrative of going through the party?
Well, I think it's getting ramped back up. I don't think there's a lot of enthusiasm around a milquetoast challenge to Joe Biden. I think all the attention's going to be in the media on the Republican side, because Trump's going to fucking run again.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
so he's a gift to them. But if it wasn't Trump, they would just do it to someone else, right? So that's like with the January 6th footage. I don't know if you saw what Tucker Carlson's been releasing, right? Yeah. And it's what we all thought all along, right? That this was a psyop. That's why they had more cops at the Medicare for All rally for Force to Vote. They had way more cops for that than they had at this fucking thing. The only cops on video are saying we got set up. They wouldn't answer. We called for backup. No, this is all a fucking setup, and to disqualify Donald Trump and outsiders from outside their party from getting any kind of power. They couldn't have that happen again, because Donald Trump every once in a while told the truth about our foreign policy, like saying the reason why we're leaving our troop, when he was asked why we're leaving our troops in Syria, he said for the oil. And they're like, what? Yeah, it's for the oil. That's why they're there. And then You can't say that. And so the least the cat, they had to get rid of him. And I had to remind people when you're watching this extra footage that, of course, they kept from people, and both parties come together to try to suppress it right now. They're both in unison, Republican Democrats hating on Tucker Carlson for releasing this shit. And because it reveals that it's all a big fucking lie.
Yeah,
It's
Mitt Romney crying about it.
That's right. It's a big lie, and it reveals it's a uniparty. And I lost my train of thought, but
It's okay. It's okay. I remember Black Twitter. Like, we remember the footage, and that they wiped that footage because I remember videos being posted. We like, the cops let them in. And like, I literally, a lot of people that forgot, but I will never forget that day on Twitter was so fun because Black Twitter was laughing at it. We was like, it's a joke. This is sad. The cops in it. Can you see all these selfies with these drunk rednecks?
Yes,
and then they wiped this. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, you saw them taking. So that's what these things are revealing. And what I want to remind people who supported Bernie Sanders is that if Bernie Sanders would have somehow magically figured out how to gain power, they would be doing the exact same thing. And to him and they already said that his followers misogynists and fucking all racists and all kinds of shit. They already said all that stuff. They already said he was with the Russians. They would have did the exact fucking same thing. They would have said now they're violent and they're terrorists. Those people are fucking terrorists. They're crazy or they're communists, or they would have called them something. And they would have did that. That's what people don't realize. That it's a little. If somebody actually from the left actually gets power, or an outsider, that's the template they're going to run. They're going to do exactly what they did to Donald Trump. They're going to do it. The only difference is Trump stood up to it more than fucking Bernie Sanders did. He couldn't wait to tuck his tail. He wouldn't even make them get rid of super fucking delegates. The goddamn Democrats, the party of the people, still have super delegates. It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. So, Jimmy, once again, thank you for your time. And I want to emphasize this because I said this earlier. But big shout out, and I appreciate you for highlighting the Workers Strike Back event. One of the only big channels that did. One of the only big channels that did. All these other boutique left channels that pretend they care about labor.
Yeah.
Nowhere to be found. When I talk to these people as a citizen journalist, they definitely reached out. And guess who's the only person out on their channel? Jimmy Dore. Guess who was at the Medicare for All rally? Jimmy Dore. Guess who was smearing at the Medicare for All rally? The boutique left. Guess who was propping up the rage against the War Machine rally? Jimmy Dore. Guess who was smearing it? The boutique left. Guess who didn't show up for the Socialist Alternative rally? The boutique left didn't show up. Jimmy Dore propped it up. And this is the position of RBN. We got venom for these people because they abandoned the outside game. How many of these people going on these smaller independent channels? How many people do highlighting mutual aid? He had Misty on. Misty was talking about. Misty was on highlighting joining the sound events. And Misty reached out to these people. They're not doing neither. So that's why Jimmy is okay in our book. Because he's not like these boutique leftists that attack and ignore outside action. Because that is what I care about at the end of the day. So thank you once again, Jimmy. And thanks for everyone.
Thanks, Jimmy.
I'll talk about Jimmy. And CJ, I don't know what else you have. Once again, thank you, Jimmy.
I'm gonna stay around. If you got another segment or something, I can stay around for the segment. But before you move to that, just saying thank you to Jimmy. Another great conversation. I try to slip in non-political questions. That's why I was kind of, how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
How you feel about that? Just to give a little different mix. For
I told you before, like
Jimmy,
usually with Jimmy and Misty, I have an outline, but it's like, bro, whatever that conversation goes,
it could be broken.
Yeah,
so for those that are. I was gonna say for those that are here, because there's a lot of Jimmy people that just joined, have been saying, just in the comments and everything. Welcome, thank you for joining. They just put us over 32,000 already, just that quick. Like 200, we got like 250 people that joined. So welcome those that love Jimmy, that love his politics, his perspective of workers need to unite against the common enemy. It doesn't matter Trump supporter, doesn't matter left, right. So if you're here and you don't like the Republicans, you don't like the Democrats, you're in the right place, because we hate both and we will critique both. We have a lot of new people watching. That's why I just wanted to address those.
We got a lot of super chats, so we can do super chats, and I'll see how we do on time then.
Absolutely.
And my favorite thing is when I like the Marianne Wilson supporters who I get a lot of heat with. I love it. Like, you guys don't realize, like, when I first criticized Barack Obama, people got mad at me for doing that years ago. Then I started criticizing the squad. People got mad at me doing that years ago. This has been the longest theme to me. I criticize the fraud that you guys are propping up, and then they get mad at me. Then later, people turn around like, damn, you actually were fucking right. Because that's what happened to Obama. People got mad at me about Obama. Then people later were like, damn, Nick, you was right about Barack Obama. I'll criticize.
That's happening with Marianne Williamson.
Yeah.
Marianne Williamson, I'm telling you, we're feeling a little bit of heat, like 25% of our response, 2 out of every 10 of our response. But I'm telling you, those same people are gonna come back and be like, "Damn, I wish I'd have
Yep.
listened to you. I would have saved $200." Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd rather get heat for criticizing politicians instead of being a class trader, like the politicians. Like I said yesterday, and I'm taking the term grifter back from these people because we can't get them to stop saying it about activists. So I'm making the point. Who's the biggest grifters? The biggest grifter, period, is politicians, without a doubt, and their handlers and their advisors. Look how much David Schroeder got paid for.
Not even close.
Look how much
It's not even
David
close.
Schroeder got paid for that. You guys know? Sabby did a report on it. Dude made bank, son. Look how much money these people made. They made bank doing this shit. And what we're saying, we're done with it. We're not gonna allow you people to grift the working class anymore, and that's gonna be our position. But anyway, we can get the super chat.
Yeah, let's get to some super chats. But before you do that, Nick, if you're here, we had 1,100 people. Join our mailing list if you want to get notifications when we go live or we drop clips. We will be cutting up the Jimmy Dore episode and dropping clips. So join our mailing list if you're not on it. I know we have like 200 and some odd new subscribers. So join our mailing list if you're not on there. We're also going to be doing op-eds in a couple of months. So that's another good reason. And you get access to our Discord. Go ahead, Nick, with the super chats.
Yeah, let's do super
Or is that what you're gonna do? I'm sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, no, you good. I was literally just trying to figure out what I think I'm gonna do the super chats, and I think I'm done with my story today. I don't know if you had another segment, but
we can close it if
let's do
that's
super
it.
chat. Thank you for the $10 to Lindsay. Class solidarity. Love the channel from Glasgow, Scotland, across the ocean. Much love, Lindsay. We hear that all the time. Like this, it always blows my mind the different perspectives globally that we're getting. Like I hear people that say they watch them from France, watch them from Brazil, watch from Mexico, watch them from the West Coast, East Coast. That's why I take pride in that. I take pride in the fact that there'll be like right wingers that be like, damn, I really hate liberals, but I fuck with you. And I'm like, I remember someone sent me that message too. I was like, man, I kind of resent that you even consider me a liberal, but I take the compliment. But anyway, let's thank you for the $10, Marco. How can RBN and Jimmy Dore work together to organize with Worker Strike Back? I'm definitely not done helping them. Obviously, I'm gonna start my own chapter, but there's no reason why my chapter don't heavily work with Worker Strike Back. If you guys don't know, I don't got the tweet saved. Hopefully, I can find it. Sabby had a big announcement. Worker Strike Back just launched in Boston.
Yes.
I retweeted it. Let me see if I can find it. I think that would be worth sharing right now. Here it is. Like I retweeted not too long ago, so I know I can find it. Here it is. So there's an announcement from Sabby Sabs, our RBN sister, because unlike these lazy boutique leftists, I'm not even saying that like we're the shit, man. My point is we're trying. At least we're trying. Like I got a lot to learn as an activist. I don't think I'm the shit. I got a lot to learn. I got a lot to accomplish, but at least we're trying.
We're trying outside of the blue and red. We're trying outside of the blue and red. Sorry, trying outside of the blue and red. That's what's important. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't consider that trying. I consider that you've been lazy. You're looking for the party apparatus to save you. So I'm not saying we're perfect. I got a lot of shit to learn as activists. I'm not a fucking leader in this shit. But at least we're trying, man. My point in my speech, I want everyone to try. Figure out your role in the movement and execute it. The boutique left want to nullify that. They want to kill that out of you. At least that's my goal. I want to stop people from falling for that. So thank you for that super chat. Dore and RBN, no better way to spend a Saturday. Absolutely. I mean, we had Jimmy Dore on here on Saturday. We all kind of fucked up here. I mean, it's a fun Saturday. It was a fun kind of, damn, we all kind of fucking high Saturday political conversation. That's why I like my Saturday shows to be. That's why I think Jimmy was a good addition. I don't know what the currency that is, but I appreciate the generous super chat. OB.
Yeah, that's something different. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, always great to hear from Jimmy. Jimmy would be great to spotlight mutual aid on your show, Ron's work. It will inspire people and give them another way to engage. And there was 2 times I was on Jimmy Dore's show, and I was like, I gotta make sure I definitely bring on Rome. And I did. And I don't remember exactly what segment, but there are a few segments where I was on Jimmy's show, like, yo, we need to do what Rome was doing. And that's on purpose. Because if I'm gonna be on that giant platform, that's what I'm gonna promote. And you guys see when I was doing my Worker Strike Back speech, I told people that Rome was a big part of, and he was a big part of someone who got me into mutual aid and completely out of the fucking electoral bullshit. It's funny.
That was Nigeria. I looked it up. So that last the money. That's
Nigeria.
Nigeria. So we at least know we have people from Africa
Nice.
watching us. So we got Africa.
Nice.
You just said somebody shouted out Ireland. Like we literally have people from the UK all the time and London all the
That's
time.
wild,
And
man.
so this is freaking awesome. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's wild. Thank you for $5. This is hilarious. Jimmy Dore will vote for Trump in 2024. Laugh out loud. So I'm assuming that's a joke. Laugh out loud because I'm pretty sure Jimmy is anti-duopoly. So I'm assuming that's a joke. Thank you for the $20. Mang, happy Saturday, RBN. Have a piece on me. Much appreciated, comrade. All the support really does help us. It really does. And that was I'll spare you guys. But just talking to people. I'll spare you guys. I'll spare you guys. Thank you for $5, Joyce. Hit that like button. Thank you for that, Joyce. Appreciate that. My point is this support, but whether you guys know or not, this support really does help. I was about to say I was talking to support at Seattle. I was telling them, like, y'all niggas don't know how close this shit was to end. Like, that's like I really don't. And I was having fun with a lot of people, a lot of supporters, but the new support we have allows us to really double down on our work and our activism, so I can do more trips like this Seattle trip. Like we just getting started, guys. So we went from like, fuck it, this shit worth it, to I'm glad that we continue this work, right? So we appreciate the support. I think for $2, Marvin, again, we support Ukraine government. Why not support SVB? Absolutely. Send billions to Ukraine. and I'm for like the bailout of the people. So what Mark Cuban they said, oh my God, we don't bail out the billionaire bankers. Trust me, it will hurt the people. Okay, let the bankers fail, the billionaire fail, and then bail out the fucking workers. What's so complicated about that? Fuck the business, bail out the people. Capital is not ready for that conversation. I think for $5, TC Blondie. Real people lost their life savings too. It's not something to celebrate. Thank you for the $5 there. There's another one from Mr. Fly. Thank you for the $21.
I added 4 more. I just added 4 more. Like
I'm
50 seconds ago.
Yeah. I'm good looking because I definitely wasn't looking. Thank you for the $2, Jane. Dora lied about spitting on Jones. Spit take. My A. Not sure the reference here, but thank you for the $2, James. Thank you for the $10, Hillbilly 99 numbers. Y'all give me hopes that there's still Sandy out there. Keep fighting these fake leftists and their BS arguments. Marianne, Vanguard, Graham John, Kyle Kalinske, all of them. And that's why they're so mad that we make these videos, CJ. But people want them because people are tired of bullshit. That's why they're like, RBN, stop exposing us. Stop being divisive. Stop being toxic. And my response to them when they say, oh my God, stop criticizing us, is stop being a shit lib. Stop giving us a reason to. Guys, if you guys think if I wanted to attack Margaret Kimberly, like if I wanted to attack Convo Couch, right? If I wanted to attack Gerald Horn or any people that we don't have to go after, you know how much I would have to reach? Like imagine if I was
exactly.
You guys know, imagine if I tried to attack Margaret Kimberly, for example. Nigga, I will reach so bad we'll get ratioed to death in those videos. But our videos resonate because they are shit libs. At the end of the day, we wouldn't have anything to criticize. We would have nothing to go after if you guys get these issues correct. And they don't. My base point is, where was the people at Worker Strike Back? Proving our points. They prove our points every time. So they could just not be shitty. So that's why we continue to do it, because there are a lot of people who've been frustrated who need to hear these criticisms. They've been waiting for someone who don't want access, who not trying to be these people friends, and that's RBN. Thanks for a 999 Jimmy Eagle. That's solidarity super chat. This is another one from Salt Lake City. 199 Eli Card. Love this show. Much love to you as well, comrade. This friend of the show, I see them often. Red Rebel Dragon.
Yeah.
Thanks for $10. Okay, I resisted this corporate scamming support long enough. I cried, uncle. Well said, comrade. Thanks for $20. This is my Missouri brother, James Starks. Thanks for $20. All the power to the people, St. Louis, Missouri. Almost there. We got one more for Steve. Thanks for $10. Thank you for $10, Steve. Fans here in Australia too, man. See, we crossing the oceans out here, man. We crossing the oceans. I appreciate the support. Thank you for the $19.99. I found RBN and Savvy through Jimmy Dore. Love from Topeka, Kansas. And that's why, despite how much these people hate us, they will never have us on the show to have these conversations because Jimmy Dore have us on because they want people to find us. The Boutique Left don't want to give any mutual aid shout outs. And I believe one of the reasons why they didn't cover the worker strike back event is because I was speaking. They don't want to get RBN
That's
any
weak.
sort of recognition because they know we could directly rebuke their politics. Jimmy Dore not worried about that though. So big shout out to Jimmy Dore because he actually does platform independent journalists instead of the independent journalists that they either pull the ladder up or you literally must kiss their ass or something for them to prop you up or something. But anyway, let's continue with the super chats here. They were $5. Black Spock Wolf for the super sticker, and I think this is the last one. Let me check. Continue the good work. Thanks from Ira. Continue the good work. Work with the Progressive Labor Party. Well said, my friends. And one more to see. Another $5. There is no bigger anti-imperialist in Africa than Eritrea. I don't say that often, so
I don't know how to say that.
It is better to die on your feet than live on your knees. Bound to everyone. Well said. We getting quite a few more super chats coming in. I just saw this one pop in too. I would appreciate it if you would define Boutique Left, specifically whether or not it relates to the abandonment of trans rights. When I use Boutique Left, I'm talking about people who still have sympathy towards capital, like these social democrats, and that's the biggest contradiction. And this is where the tension between Marxists and social democrats is. Social democrats have a natural affinity of maintaining capitalism because they suffer from capitalist realism. I did a stream on that before. Capitalist realism is the belief that capitalism will never go away, so the best you can do is nibble around it. The idea that nothing will ever change, so you might well love the system as it is and change what you can. That's what social democrats believe. So they often tend to be weak on the system because they're not trying to overthrow the system. They don't want a revolution. They don't really believe in the tenets of Marxism and socialism. They just rather have reform, often because they benefit from the system. They often high class, which leads to me saying boutique. You're part of the Boutique Left. You make a lot of money. Think about how much money Ryan Grimm makes, for example. Best example of a Boutique Leftist. Think how much money AOC, Bernie Sanders, and Squad makes. Ton of fucking money. Boutique Leftists. They're New York Times people who are like, I'm a progressive. Boutique Leftists. Because their politics is not rooted in class struggle. It's not rooted in class struggle at all. Now, to get to the question, I don't know if I answered your question, but it's like, how is that rooted in the trans rights? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take it down. Because there is a part of the question I want to answer. Specifically whether, so when I say Boutique Left, that had nothing to do with trans right now. I read the question, had nothing to do with that. I think the whole trans thing is promoted by capitalists. I'm talking about like the right-wing capitalists to divide the workers. So like what I mean by that, like drag queens, trans people always existed throughout history. So Americans have no grasp of history. Even in European societies and African societies and South American societies, there's always been people who change and manipulate their gender. This is a tale as old as time. So what do you do when capitalism is crashing and when people are starting to form worker solidarity? You find any cultural war you can find.
Right.
So, and then they shield it by using the kids. And this is go back to the child worship that George Carlin to do. They will say, oh, well, I'm not getting transgender rights. I just care about the kids. I'm about protecting the kids. Get the fuck out of here. You don't give a fuck about the kids. If you did, you'd be advocating for homeless kids, for kids in poverty, for kids that have health care. These people don't give a fuck about the kids. It's a long-term tradition to pretend you care about the kids, to push social conservative beliefs to divide the workers. That's what that's about. So the whole trans culture war is heavily pushed by right-wing capitalists in order to get workers to divide and fight against each other, because they know that's something like, if you're a trans person, you're not going to give that up. If you have trans friends, LGBTQ friends like us, like JB Font is our brother. Like, we're not throwing them under the bus for anybody. So the capitalists know this. So they said, let's take advantage of the bigotry of the working class and have the people who can't stand trans people fight against the trans people. And that's why you got people like Jackson Hinkle and other people that focus so much on wokeism, because that's meant to divide the workers. Have you fight over trans people that's only like 0.3% of the population? There's only like 5 trans athletes active at any time, but that dominates the conversation instead of the homelessness. So that's what my long-winded answer to this question is related to class. I think the whole trans, Like I think like the obvious position is to stand in solidarity for people in the rights. If you're not,
Yeah.
you dividing the workers. So that's my position. I'm long-winded as hell.
All oppression, yeah. The word you should be as a person who advocates for the worker, you're against all oppression. That's all oppression, whether it's any form, sexism, racism, transphobia, in any form of things trying to divide people for other reasons. So, and I'll add to the boutique part. So boutique, the term I think stems from saying, like, if you walk past a shop, the thing in the window, like the showpiece, that's the boutique, like a showpiece where you're signaling that you're some way, but your either your strategy and it doesn't align, like your votes don't align with something, so that makes you boutique. In my opinion, but I use more pseudo, and I'm starting to use more the term pseudo less as a catch-all for more than, because it's the NATO left, it's the boutique left, it's all of these people who pretend to be left but never willing to go do the things that get the thing that tangibly get the things they say they want. To me, that's pseudo. Go ahead.
Yeah, pseudo's a good one. I personally like boutique because even if you're not upper class, even if you're not actually privileged, it still really applies because I'm trying to wake people up. So if you're poor but you're following the strategies of bourgeoisie politics, my point of me saying this is to wake you up. Like, what the fuck are you doing? If you're working class, you should not be following the politics of the bourgeoisie and the boutique left. So if you're poor and you're following the boutique left, maybe you should second guess yourself. But I think both is pretty good. I think there's another super chat here. I think this is the last one, unless we got a few more. A lot of comments and questions today. Yeah, I'll make sure I didn't miss any. I started
as two more. I just added.
Yeah. All right, okay. So I started as a fan of Carol back in 2015 and was on the Bernie train. I was also on board with the Justice Democrat strategy, but now the results are in. Trying the same strategy for a third time is insanity. That's what we've been saying. Like I have friends who like Misty who wasn't down for Bernie 2020, but my hard-headed ass had to see it one more time. And I told this story before. One of the reasons why I quit my job to work on the Bernie campaign, because I kind of felt bad in 16, because in 2016 I didn't do anything. That's when I was in the height of selling cars. I was working like fucking 60 to 70 hours a week. I was like, bro, and I was also arrogant. I was like, bro, Bernie's definitely about to fucking win. I didn't do shit. So in 2020, I was like, I want to try it again, and let's see if we can change it up. If everyone get on board, if everyone donate money, and that's why I was like, everyone do best they can, everyone knock on doors, everyone phone bank. And we really go hard in 2020, like I feel like I did it, and some other people did it in 2016. What happens then? Like, what happens if I do try? Then I tried, and that's all I was ready. After 2020, I was like, all right, we did it once and twice. The second time, I'll admit I've been hard-headed here. But I want to see what happens if we go all out one more time with a more name recognition candidate. After Bernie 2020, you have to be insane to do this again. Not only because the result of the election, it's because what Bernie and the squad have done afterwards. Like if there was something tangible to show for the working class, I was like, well, at least we invested $100 million for X, Y, and Z. We invested $100 million in order for Bernie Sanders to run a cover for the Ukraine proxy war. For Pramila Jayapal to fucking support the Ukraine war, for them to support Armin Taiwan. So that's the argument I make that blows the mind from Marianne Williamson and other people, is that Bernie and his movement has been a net negative. We are further away from Medicare for all. Now, we are now the Democratic Party shifted further to the right. Joe Biden implementing all Trump policies with no opposition. So it's a net negative. So with all that said, that long-windedness, I know I'm talking to today. The long-winded part of this is never again. My tolerance is very low for people who see this shit, see what happened in 16 and 20, see us betrayed by the Bernie movement, see what they're continuing to do, and then the person that you guys are propping up, Marianne Williamson, does not even have a criticism of it.
Not
Last
at all.
point is that if you're going to do this strategy I disagree with, you better illustrate to me that you know the flaws. Meaning that if you're running and you're doing a strategy like, yeah, I had the criticism of Bernie for this, I have the criticism of AOC of this, I wouldn't do this if I was in position. Remember, Neil Turner said, if you're disappointed with the squad, you'll be disappointed in me. Then I asked Marianne Williamson about Bernie on my show, and she did have not a negative thing to say about him. In fact, she still have nothing but good things to say about Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren to this day. So if you're still praising Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and the progressive squad that sold us out, that shows me that you have not only learned nothing, but you will do the same thing they were doing if given this position of power. And people don't see this, and they're not just their strategy, and we're not having it. That's my last rant today. Any last thoughts, CJ? I'm pretty much done for today. Any last thoughts?
Yeah. I just want you to make sure you stick around for the outro video. I'm gonna play the Kyle and Kalinske video they put up about Trump is getting indicted. See, this is a thing that I don't know if you've been seeing the news, and Joe Scarborough is going to be pushing.
Yeah, we got a lot
on Monday.
We got a lot of
like
Monday.
Trump enemy is coming. Like he's getting arrested. He's going to jail. He's never going to spend a single day.
Yeah, it's
prison.
so ridiculous. It's
so ridiculous. But this is the carrot the carrot and the stick that they do with these liberals. Oh, we're almost there. I was one of them, Nick. With Russiagate. Before Russiagate came out and said nothing was going on, that was my point that broke me out of the Democratic Party, even thinking that it was possible. I was like, this Russiagate, because I was like, believing, I was like, yeah, we have a spy in the White House. Get that motherfucker out. Then I'm start breaking this shit down. I was like, this shit is not adding up. And anyway, long story short, that's one of the tales of how I got here. That was one of the things that broke my mind.
We got to dive into that more on Monday because I actually noticed the same thing. Like when I was looking for propaganda segments, I was seeing these hopium segments. I'm like, dude, they're still doing it. They still doing these segments like, no, trust me, guys. No, I promise you. We're going to get through this time. I promise you. So I'm glad you got that too because I did see a few and we might do a segment on it because it's hilarious. We got a lot to cover because like with Jimmy, I actually threw 2 stories, but we get to those on Monday. What I say? I think make sure you guys, I got a few guests I'm working on for next week. Do you want me to stay on? Was there anything else, CJ?
If you need to take off, you can take off. I'm gonna play this this thing they just released right here as an outro. But shit. No, this is goodness. This is it. I personally haven't seen it, but it says
Wait, you talking about them? Hold up, I thought you were talking about. Hold up, wait, I thought you were talking about Morning Joe.
Maybe we should watch a little bit of it. Maybe I'll watch a little bit of it right now.
I was like, hold up. So that's funny. I was like, I thought you saw the same Morning Joe segment I did. You saw the same.
No, I know which one you're talking about. I know which one you're talking about. We'll do that on Monday. We'll do that one on Monday.
The funny thing is, I assumed he was talking about MSNBC, bro. I did not know he was talking about Crystal and Cal. They're doing it. Wow!
I love these segments. How they come live from our boutique home, live from home as we dress in our casual outfits with no makeup. Listen to us report the news. It's just a joke, but maybe I'll listen to a minute of it and just to see what they're talking about.
I'll be listening. I'll see you guys on Monday. I'm gonna head up. I'll be
all
listening.
right.
I'll see you guys.
What's up, guys? So we got some interesting news that came out yesterday. I'm interested to know whether or not you think it'll change anything, because that's a more important question. Politically, yeah.
No.
Okay. Well, there's your answer. All right, video over. Anyway,
there we go.
So it looks like a Trump indictment is imminent.
Yeah.
So I'll have Crystal give some more of the details, but it's not like the issue that it's over is one of the ones where it's like, even if an indictment is imminent, even if a conviction is imminent, it's like slap on the wrist type stuff, right?
Yes. So this has to do with the old Stormy Daniels hush money payment, which I really had to reach into the deep recesses of my memory to gather all of the details of this one. But so this is with the Manhattan DA, Alvin Bragg. And basically the reason we know an indictment is imminent is because they effectively told Trump's lawyers that he needs to come and testify before the grand jury this week. Kitty just showed up. And that is apparently a sign that a person is about to be criminally indicted. So there's 2 charges relevant to this, and they have to kind of put them together in what was described in the article I read as a novel application of legal theory in order to make this into a felony versus a misdemeanor. One of them has to do with the, the payment itself. I don't remember if it was wire fraud, some sort of like, fraud type of thing with regard to the payment.
Because it was used with campaign funds. They paid her with campaign funds, which was the whole
Well,
genesis of why it's a crime.
So that's the other part of it
okay.
is a campaign finance violation, because they're saying that this was like an undisclosed contribution to his campaign. So
Okay.
So anyway, that is you put those two together and it becomes a felony. It's there's a possibility of, I think, at max 4 years in prison, but there's also not a requirement that there's any prison time. So that's what we know about it.
And I believe Michael Cohen was the one who delivered on the payment. So
Correct.
they're probably using him, to testify against Trump, and that's how they're going to get him.
Right. And I mean, he's obviously helpful for making the case against Trump, because he's telling them, what happened and et cetera. But he's also not the most credible witness, because he himself, was caught lying, et cetera. So they'll use his own character to try to undermine whatever his testimony is.
So what's a worst case scenario for Trump, and what's a best case scenario for Trump in your estimation?
You're talking about in terms of
legally? Of punishment. So we already know he's getting indicted. Foregone conclusion, that's going to happen, right?
Yeah. Worst case is 4 years. I have a hard time imagining they would actually hit him with that. Best case is he gets off altogether.
Okay, best case is he gets off altogether. He's not found guilty, whatever. He does the whole, exonerated thing that he did after the 2 impeachments.
Right. There's also a chance that, he's found guilty, but it's like a fine and he doesn't actually, serve any prison time.
Can you imagine any scenario where it's like 6 months in prison or a year in prison? Or do you think that's so
I don't know.
unlikely as to be like, no way?
I don't know.
I mean, part of the issue is, like, of all the different investigations into him, I feel like this one has the most potential to backfire.
Yeah.
Where, like, you have the headlines of, oh, it's an indictment. Well, then you rile up the right-wing base to support him even more. If you convict him and it's just a fine, it's like, he gets to play the victim game when there's really nothing but a slap on the wrist to him, so he gets even more support.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're playing into his hands with this particular one. There are other cases where I feel like, oh, there's there that's way more serious. For example, the Georgia case where they find the 11,000 votes.
Right.
Like, there's more upside to that potentially, because it seems more serious.
Right.
Seems like there might be more of a punishment associated with it. Even the stuff, which I don't even know if they're looking into it anymore, about how they basically defrauded their own supporters to the tune of $250 million when they were raising money for Stop the Steal, and then none of that money went towards Stop the Steal. That strikes me as like way more serious and potentially like a worse punishment, or even a best case scenario for him. It's not that good. You know what I mean? But this is one of those where it's like it could easily backfire.
I feel the same way. And I also think it's one where he could more easily make the case that this was political. Alvin Bragg was elected to this position, with, in part people expected him to go after Trump. So I think he'll make that case. And I also just feel like from a political perspective, all the Stormy Daniels stuff, people have kind of
Okay, I listened off screen to several minutes of it. They're trying, not them on the screen, but they're trying everything they can to make sure Trump doesn't run again, and so that he can expose more of their lies, which is just terrible. But I can take that off. One thing I do want to show is our website. Make sure you go and check that out. And in particular, our outreach. We're going to be updating. Rome has done so much work on the library that it looks completely different now. So make sure you go check out our website so that you can see this information or see things like this. And our chapter launch is another tab. You can check out our chapter launch information, what we look to do with our chapters. You can look up member information here. You can click on any of us. Say you click on Sabby, you can see a write-up of her and then some other information. So check that out. Just wanted to shout that out. The last time I'm going to shout out Substack. Join our Substack so you get notifications when we go live. And also you get sent the link to our Discord. So you get access to our Discord account. We also have memberships for those that are just brand new. We have memberships on our channel now. It's a little over a week since we've had membership, so it is new to us, but thank you for those that have joined our membership. There is something else I do want to play here, so let's do that. Is it showing what I'm doing here? Yeah, okay, so it is on the right screen. So let's go here. Okay, yeah, I'm on the right screen. All right, so let's take this off. So a couple of videos we've been posting. But this one, that one, that's us right there. Where is it at? This one in particular, I want to play again. And if you're watch this on if you're at if you're on Twitter, retweet this. Just retweeted it myself. But great points made in this video by Nick. Let's listen.
President, and the only way to override that is through a massive political revolution at the ballot box, which
A massive political revolution at the ballot box. Said the person who supports the two-state solution. Said the person who still believes that Bernie Sanders is great and praised Biden multiple times. Political revolution. We had enough of your grift. You're not tricking us anymore. You guys tricked us because RBN did not exist. We are here. We are your biggest nightmare because we will not allow you to trick working class people with you hijacking our language.
so where you take that to go third party, that makes me say we got to get in there. And I don't think either of us is wrong. I just think we have to do everything, whatever our gut says, our heart, go for it. That's
Yeah,
how
I
I
love
see
the
this.
energy, and I never dissuade people for taking their shots. And I always say that our focus should be 15% electoral. So I could not have been nicer to Marianne during this conversation, despite how nice. Look, you all see this for again. Well, I'm being nice to her, and she still smears me as a sexist. Still smears me as a sexist later. You guys want to hear how nice I am to her again?
That says our heart, go for it. That's
Yeah,
how
I
I see
love the
this.
energy, and I never dissuade people for taking their shots. And I always say that our focus should be 15% electoral politics, not that much. That 15% is organizing for stuff like reparations and class wins. I have a theory. I'm not sure if I'm 100% right, like we all say, but I have a theory that, especially with, as you said, Black Caucus, Democratic Party, you got all these neoliberals that are against reparations. There is no way that as a Black community, we are getting what we want politically through the two-party duopoly. We are 13% of the
I
population,
understand.
and both parties wedged that. They wedged that against us, and we voted for the Democratic Party at a 90% rate every single year, so they don't even run on our issues. Everyone else get their issues except ours. The only theory I have of change in terms of electoral politics, which I wouldn't put that much stock in, the only theory of change that makes sense to me is as Black people and our allies, we form third parties, and then we force the politicians to carve that support. So if you lose an election as a Democrat because you lost the Black vote, I guess the next candidate has to run on reparations then, right? So that's why third parties have to be a leveraging tool of our community who gets nothing. Under the Biden administration right now, Black Americans are weak. Our community has been destroyed. The police is stronger than ever. We get nothing. I'm doing this little spill to explain to Marianne because she's very dumb and ditzy. So apparently she doesn't get it. I explained to her the stuff that we are not getting, we need to leverage for. Just basic political knowledge. And I explained to her because she's a white, rich, liberal woman who obviously had no contact with the Black working class. I am telling her the Democratic blue cities, our ruling class, has sold us out. And it seems like, and I have to explain this part to her again, because it seems like she don't understand the gravity of the situation. It seems like Marianne and the entire professional managerial class do not understand the gravity of the situation. So I use that strategy to just show her how she honestly being serious, even with her advocacy of reparations. She's like, oh, I'm for reparations, but then she doesn't endorse the Democratic Party where there is zero chance of that happening. I've been telling my ADOS, my reparations brothers and sisters, I'm like, bro, unless you embrace a Marxist approach, you guys are just tweeting reparations for clout. If you're a capitalist for reparations, that's not going to work. We need a Marxist framework. to accomplish that because we will never get through electoral politics. So I just had to explain this to Marianne. And I'm like, are you going to say anything to debunk this? And I'm going to get to my question later. I'll explain to her the value of having a leveraging tool. But let's continue. Nothing going through the strategy. So with 50, this is my question. 50% of Americans said they're ready for a third party. So we need that spark. We need something that will start that. So we need people that is willing to run third party to start this spark. So I want to ask you this, like, what is your objection towards doing that, if there is one?
Well, first of all, there was a lot of teeth in the first things that you said. This issue of the Democratic Party being taken for granted, Black America being taken for granted by the Democratic establishment. But I would argue that you would, if Black America wanted to say to the Democratic establishment, don't take us for granted, voting for someone like me would be as effective as voting for someone in a third party, because you're still outside the context.
Girl, you are literally a Zionist. Shut the fuck up. But shut the fuck. I still can't. Huh?
Of the corporatists who are running on the same old same.
Also, another benefit of having a third party is having a third party that.
I jumped back on screen because that was absolutely ridiculous. If you want the Democratic Party to be mad, Black people, vote for me. Another different Democrat. Just stupidity on top of stupidity, or bad strategy on top of bad strategy. I mean, I can't imagine anybody thinks that's true. What she's saying, I can't imagine. But let's listen to Bree and Crystal, who 6 months ago was talking about Marianne Williamson running.
Her congressional debate that she didn't think that Biden was going to run. People are looking at certain moves Gavin Newsom is making in California as evidence that he's trying to move center to prepare himself for the national stage. A number of progressives and others who, when asked over the last month in interviews whether or not they thought Joe Biden was going to run, kind of punted it and gave answers along the lines of, I'm not sure, I don't want to answer, we'll talk about it after the midterms. Do you think that means that even if Biden is going to run, there's still going to be a Democratic Party challenger?
I do not think that there will be a challenger who is actually an elected Democrat. So Gavin Newsom, there is no way that man has the stones to go up against the whole party establishment. Not a chance. Pritzker is another one that's floated. Who are some of the other ones that, crop? I know for a fact Ro Khanna has, told people very clearly and directly, like, he would not run against Biden. Even Bernie said, I wouldn't run if Biden's running, which I think if Bernie is even on the record being like, if my friend Joe is running, I'm out. I think it would be very, very unlikely that an actual elected Democrat challenges him. So it would have to be someone who's an outsider. Obviously, Marianne Williamson, who we both know and love, is thinking possibly in that direction. I personally love Marianne. I think she has a lot to offer, including having a balance of great, like, lefty policy chops, but also a sort of.
This is about 6 months ago, this conversation. Do we think they knew, these two of the handful of people that's really pushing Marianne Williamson? Do you think they knew at the time of this conversation that Marianne Williamson would be running for president? Now I want to show you when RBN, Nick, Sabby, and I went on Bad Faith in a conversation we had with Bree. Marianne Williamson came up along with David Sirota.
With combination of third party, because I want you guys to understand, that is a theory of change they are not representing. By having and engaging with Joan Strikes, I know that was the main question, engaging with Joan Strikes with combination of third parties plus mutual aid, this is how you create change. This is an effective strategy that the inside game, once again, I cannot stress enough, abandoned. So I was all for these progressives that are willing to challenge the Democratic Party establishment if they was willing to work with this outside mutual aid game. They are not. They ain't showed to Rome's tour for the poor. They're not helping us feed the homeless. They're not showing up to anti-war rallies. So if you don't want to join us, fine. We do our own stuff. We need to build our own movement. It's not going to happen with the 2-year election cycles they brainwashed us to focus on. Just focus on 2 years. And my last point I want to make, they will call us a nihilist because we don't believe in supporting this failed strategy of supporting the Democratic Party. Bree, what is the biggest nihilists are the people who lose an election. And then they say, oh, woe is me. We're screwed. Donald Trump won. We're all going to die. That's the biggest nihilist. When Trump won, I'm like, okay, let's organize. Joe Biden won, let's organize. Because that doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I am torn a little bit about this because I do want to say that I respect enormously what folks like David Sirota have done in this space, because but for a lot of their research and knowledge of how things actually work procedurally on the Hill, I, for one, would not have had the ability to advocate for things like force the vote.
Get the fuck out of here. This propping up of David Sirota. I wouldn't be able to do, I do my job just fine. There's many podcasters that do their job just fine. Never heard of The Lever, never heard of David Sirota. So give me a break with that, David Sirota. I'm just showing you quick little snippets of some of the videos we've had to post lately because of the shenanigans going around Marianne Williamson. Here's one by Do Dissidents.
I know I had so many conversations, met with people, talked with people who was broke, struggling, who was still donating money to the Bernie campaign. $100 million spent by the working class on the Bernie campaign. And what did we get? We got a guy in a movement who threw away his political revolution, who abandoned his outside game, and what I consider $100 million thrown in the drain. Now, what we got by investing that kind of money is literally PR agents of the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders is a war pig who's funding war. They're all apologizing for the same things they used to criticize Trump for. So I see that as a massive waste of the working class money to do that again, especially someone running in the Democratic Party and someone I view as being a little bit too soft on Biden Democratic Party. So I'm gonna ask you, why do you think people should invest in your campaign considering what we already wasted?
Well, I think much of what you said is a legitimate argument. I think there are a lot of legitimate points to be made here. One of the times I saw you, Sabby, you were mentioning something that I had said about running as a Democrat and being nostalgic for the Democratic Party of FDR. And you said on your show, oh, Marianne, that Democratic Party doesn't exist anymore. Well, you're right, actually. And that's why I was hoping you were actually going to write. I almost want to say, well, let me on, because you're right. And I certainly understand someone your age, you haven't even seen that Democratic Party, whereas I at least have some institutional memory.
Okay, I have to pause it here. She said this to the Vanguard guys, too. Goes on about her nostalgia for the Democratic Party of old. That is an obnoxious point to make because, I'm sorry, your emotional nostalgia for the bygone era of a populist Democratic Party is fucking irrelevant. It's irrelevant. That's like saying McDonald's used to be kind of healthy back before they started with the pink slime, right? The first McDonald's, they gave you a real hamburger. Okay, great. That's not what it is anymore, right? Now it's a pink slime pumping corporate machine, just like the Democratic Party is now. So the fact that you remember the heyday of the party, that's irrelevant.
It does give you a lot of insight into where she's coming from because
okay, but I don't care, man. Like I don't like that's it's almost an insulting thing to say. It borders on insulting. It really does.
I'm just saying it's interesting. Like what, because I don't consider her a dishonest actor.
I'm not saying she's dishonest. I'm just saying that's an obnoxious point.
It is, but it shows you that what is animating her is this what I would consider a delusion. That and really, even institutional memory or not, I think we were all animated by that. Those of us who got involved in the Bernie campaign, we were all.
And I just want to clarify. Sorry to cut
idea.
you off, but Jean says she wants the Clinton years back. No, she's not talking about the Clinton years. On the Vanguard interview, she was talking about the FDR years, right?
Now, Keaton, I think that's his name. He brings up the point that I've made before about Marianne Williamson always wanting to bring up these historical figures who a lot of us on the left will call even colonialists, imperialists, like they're not good figures to bring up, but she's stuck in this, you know, sort of Leave It to Beaver era of Democratic Party that's really more fantasy than actuality, I should say, is more fantasy than not. But here is another video, and again, the interview that she did on Status Quo, besides the RBN interview, this has got to be the most damaging interview she's done. Self-inflicted. This is a friendly network.
During Bernie's 2 runs, I think he showed up to a knife fight holding a spoon. God bless him, but he would only go up to a certain line. There were many opportunities that he had to offer specifics on corruption regarding Hillary Clinton, Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. Honestly, I think he let Joe Biden get away with political murder in terms of his civil rights record, his record in terms of African Americans, mass incarceration. I understand, you know, his attitude was run a positive campaign, no personal attacks, but you have to contrast. You have to sometimes play hardball. And I think whether somebody runs in the primary or as a third party, I mean, for example, Zephyr Teachout, who was a surrogate of Bernie Sanders in 2020, wrote a piece for The Guardian. It was fact-based. It pointed out that Joe Biden had some corruption issues, and Bernie's campaign, it was coming from Bernie, totally walked it back. If you run against Biden, are you willing to go there? I mean, not personal pot shots, but on his record, because I think the Democratic electorate was a lot of that got hid from them due to media and other resources.
Bernie is a U.S. senator. He is an institutionalist, and I think he had some assumptions, had some trust that if Biden won, we know he wanted to be labor secretary, then was not given that position and so forth. Bernie has done so much for this country and certainly has done so much for the progressive movement. I don't want to be taking out a baseball bat against Bernie here either. We all can look and we can learn.
So we're not going to learn from our mistakes because you're so worried about your civility politics. You're so worried about being mean to your friends that we're not going to critically analyze what went wrong and then correct our mistakes, because that's what you guys are doing when you guys do this. You guys think I'm being mean to Bernie? No, I'm calling out the mistakes. With Jordan, props to this question, because it's a good question, because he brings up the fact that Bernie threw his own staff under the bus. Zephyr Teachout, who called out Biden criticism, threw him under the bus. So that goes back to my original point. If we have people that wanted to throw people under the bus for calling out Democratic Party corruption, why would we invest in that campaign? Why would we invest in a movement that does that? So that's actually a good point for Jordan there. But why would we do that? And why aren't you having the ability to critically analyze what happened there? You essentially dodged Jordan's question. Like, imagine that. But let's continue.
It's such a, just think about that. A politician can't comment, and you want to run for president, but you can't speak critically, logically, without being offensive. You mean you can't speak about any of your friends that do anything bad, that does anything wrong? Why would we want you as a leader for? Don't you know a lot of the people that in the establishment didn't you meet them when you ran? Didn't you form relationships? So why are we to think she's not going to apply this sort of logic to everybody if we put her, if we try to get her elected? She is so not for this moment. Nick, I cannot stress that enough. Like, she is so not for this moment. She's not even right for 2020 or 16. I think she's more 2008. She is that far behind, as far as I'm concerned. So,
obviously, I can tell you this much. I have said this to many people. If I do this, I'm not doing this just to make a point. I've already made a point. And I can also tell you as a writer, if you want to make a point much easier with a lot less stuff thrown at you, you don't.
It's easier. You see how easy? So even the men, it's easier. We don't want to do movement building. That's hard. That's the hard work. It's easier for me to get my publicity, for me to benefit what I want to accomplish instead of building a movement. But continue the video. I want to hear the rest of the point.
If I run for president, I can tell you that much. If I run for president, I'm really running for president, and that should be the answer to your question.
Well, you said make a point. Are you
What
willing?
does that mean? You see, no evidence. It's that I'm not just running to run, and when I'm running for president, I'm running for president. That should be an answer. What the fuck does that mean? Go ahead, Nick. What does that mean?
Jordan, I think, is going to ask her the question again because I told you, Marianne Williamson dodged Jordan's question.
Wow.
This is the person that you guys wanted to draft as the left leader. And I won't play the clip because I think Jordan, like, hey, I want to get back to the question. I
didn't see it this far, so I don't know if he does.
Rewind like 10 seconds. Rewind 10 seconds. Rewind 10 seconds, then play it again. I want to make sure I get it right before I speak on this.
Okay.
Because I pointed out before she didn't answer the question.
Okay, I think we're here.
Part of the Democrats will be to invisibilize my candidacy.
Oh, shit.
They will be.
Hang on, Mike, second. I went way too far back. I meant to go right about here.
He is a U.S. senator. He is an institutionalist, and I think he had some assumptions, had some trust that if Biden won, we know he wanted to be labor secretary, then was not given that position and so forth. Bernie has done so much for this country and certainly has done so much for the progressive movement. I don't want to be taking out a baseball bat against Bernie here either. We all can look and we can learn. Obviously, I can tell you this much. I have said this to many people. If I do this, I'm not doing this just to make a point. I've already made a point. And I can also tell you as a writer, if you want to make a point much easier with a lot less stuff thrown at you, you don't run for president. So if I run for president, I can tell you that much. If I run for president, I'm really running for president. And that should be the answer to your question.
Well, you said make a point. Are you willing on the debate stage to point out the donors? I mean, Biden at this point is trying to privatize Medicare under the cloak of darkness. There's a lot of issues.
Wait, there's no evidence. Now, wait a minute. There's no evidence that Joe Biden is trying to privatize.
What? Wait, what? Wait.
She's defending Biden. He's asking, are you going to critique him? And instead, she's coming in to defend Biden.
There is no way. So Jordan tries his best to give her a question that is easy to answer. Jordan asked her, if you run, unlike Bernie Sanders, he said, unlike Bernie Sanders, who threw his colleague under the bus for calling out his corruption, will you do what Bernie Sanders did not and call out Biden's corruption? And then she go on the word salad where she says, I'm not going to throw Bernie under the bus. Then Jordan like, God damn it. Let me ask it again. He's trying to save her. All right, so I'm trying to ask you, are you going to be critical of Biden and his policies? And she's like, well, I don't know. Then you start defending Biden. You can't make this up.
He knows how bad it looks at the time. He knows that this is not. I can't have this be what it was to Nina Turner with the Mike Figueredo interview. I can't have this happen here. He's trying to clean this up because I think Jordan picks up that, hey, this is not sounding that great. This is not going to sound that great. Let me kind of clean this up for you.
Ties Medicare under the cloak of darkness. The Republicans are certainly trying to do that.
Well, no, I mean, David Sirota has reported that he's kept a lot. Biden has.
Their savior, their journey to savior has wrote about this. So she's like, oh, you motherfucker gonna bring me on here to do this.
So then Jordan's like, wait. Don't. No, David Schroeder said that. Come on. Bro, he gave her a toss up. And then she started defending Biden and lied about Biden. And once again, props to Jordan for bringing this up. I will give him credit for bringing this line of questioning up because it's kind of exposed Marianne. Because he tried to get her to say that she would be critical of Biden, which will like alleviate left criticism of her. Like I said, remember on my show, I said that I was like, Marianne, I don't like the fact that you're too soft on these people. She's like, Nick, you saying I'm too soft? And then she proceeds to prove my point correct on Jordan's show. I said on my show that you're too soft on Biden, and then she proves it by defending him on a lie.
All she has to say is, yes, I will combat it. You don't have to go in your question. I didn't like what you said about Joe Biden, so let me, just answer the question. That's not the point of the question, but you're so offended by the premise of the question, you have to interject Yeah, we really feel secure that you're gonna go at Joe Biden now. We really feel secure after this answer.
She already a
That's
bias
what,
surrogate. That's a good comment.
Joe Biden is trying to privatize Medicare under the cloak of darkness. The Republicans are certainly trying to do that.
Well, no, I mean,
Oh, there
David
it is.
Sirota has reported that he's kept a lot. Biden has continued a lot of President Trump's policies that was essentially backdoor trying to privatize elements of Medicare.
This is the person
Well,
you guys
I have
want
not
to do a
seen
dirty
that
break
particular
with.
data.
This is the person you guys want to do a dirty break with. I want to hear her response. Go ahead, play it. I just want to add.
Oh, you don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear it. You see the body language. You can tell she is not happy here. She's not happy. She thought she came on a friendly progressive Democrat network, but she ran into Jordan, who has been criticized by RBN, and I think he has made some adjustments here. Let's rewind it again and listen.
Joe Biden is trying to privatize Medicare under the cloak of darkness. The Republicans are certainly trying to do that.
Well, no, I mean,
I've seen
David Sirota's report.
He's not a sexist when he interrupts her. How come he's not a sexist right now? Let's see if it ends with her calling him a man. Are you mansplaining?
Yeah, is
right
Jordan
now?
mansplaining? Gee, wow.
Reported that he's kept a lot. Biden has continued
Look
a lot
at her
of
body
President
language
Trump's
change.
policies that was essentially backdoor trying to privatize elements of Medicare.
Hair twist.
Well, I have not seen that particular David Sirota coverage, but I will certainly look at it.
Oh,
Listen,
but this is the person we want. This person who's not informed. You're not informed on the basic crimes of what Biden is doing, but you're the person that we're supposed to annoy.
So she swoops in to play Captain Save-A Joe, then finds out there's receipts. So she doesn't go, okay, Jordan, I trust you as a journalist that you're repeating what David Sirota said, another journalist, as true. So if he does, then yes. Instead, she says, I haven't read it, so I'm basically not going to comment on it because you got to prove to me that Joe Biden is terrible. Like you can't see it with your own eyes. That was a good clip. That's why I let that one play all the way through. And now there is another clip. This is a funnier clip, but it goes to the point of this whole Democratic strategy. We need to add Marianne Williamson to this clip by Turncoat Don, Nancy's Angels. We need to add Marianne Williamson. It may be updated to Biden's Angels. And let's watch if it plays. Let's see if it plays.
3 little girls who went to Congress. And
so I'll start it over because I think I might have talked over those words in the beginning. So I'll start it over for everybody to see. This is a funny video. Let's watch. Okay, let's refresh and watch, I guess. Is this? Oh, this is an old video. This is an old video. Yeah, I haven't watched it in a while. I think it still plays all the way through. But we'll watch another called Don Classic.
Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice, for being there to call out to your mom. How heartbreaking was that?
Another classic from Turncoat D. And then we're going to end with this final video, which is the pinned video on RBN Revolutionary Blackout Network's Twitter account. Pinned video where Chris Hedges and Shama Sawant talks to Brianna Joy Gray about running within the Democratic Party.
Challenger? And he said unequivocally yes. Names that have been thrown around in the context of this article were Marianne Williamson and Nina Turner. AOC's former communications director, Corbin Trent, was quoted as saying about Biden, he's deeply unpopular, he's old as shit, he's largely been ineffective, unless we're counting judges or whatever the hell inside baseball scorecard we're using. And I think he'll probably get demolished in the midterms. New poll numbers came out today showing new lows for Joe Biden. And people on the left aren't satisfied, I think, at this moment saying, oh gosh, Biden's not doing very well. They really want an opportunity to telegraph their discontent that is something other than staying at home, which can be construed as, you just are disaffected, you're just lazy, you're just sitting out, you are giving up your civic responsibility. And to that end, I wonder what you make about some of these options that have been floated as a third-party candidate. And do you think there will be, and should be a challenger, a progressive challenger, whether they run on the Democratic Party ticket or as a third party, to Joe Biden in 2024?
There absolutely should be a progressive challenger from the left in a militant campaign. I absolutely don't think it should be from the Democratic Party. And I do want to address the specific names that you brought up. But before doing that, I want to say it's much more about the strategy, the political strategy that we as working people use to bring a real challenge to the Democratic and Republican candidates. And the starting point, the ABCs of that strategy are you don't run as a Democrat. Because look at what they did to Bernie Sanders. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry of progressive Democrats supported Bernie in 2020. They were, when I went to the Tacoma Dome to speak at Bernie's rally, they were all there with me. I know these people, they don't support Bernie's politics, but they were there because it was so easy. There was nothing at stake to get on the Bernie bandwagon at that time, and yet then go ahead and support Biden once Bernie was crushed, because we all knew that was going to happen. The Democratic Party elite were going to use some trick or another to get Bernie off the books. And then you got James Clyburn, you got South Carolina, and lo and behold, it happened. We didn't know exactly how it would happen, but we knew it would happen. So the first obligation we have as people on the left, if we are serious organizers, if we have any loyalty to the working class, is to first be crystal clear about that. Whether it makes you popular or not, be crystal clear. The Democratic Party is not the way to go. And I don't want to hear, these things that people come up with on the left where they'll say, well, it's the ballot line, it's the technicality. No, this is no technicality. This is, if you don't run as an independent, you are not taking on the fight that needs to be taken on, which is to present an independent fight back. And if you don't, Bernie was the strongest expression so far of the burning desires that working people have. And I have a lot of appreciation for Bernie, but look what happened. It went nowhere. And so the question really is, can we have an independent challenge? And can we have, through that campaign, the ability to build something? I mean, one of the things that Socialist Alternative had repeatedly called on Bernie to do is, after you were crushed by the Democratic elite, don't just admit defeat, maybe launch a big organization, launch a independent political organization coming out of it. I have no doubt that had he done that, millions would have joined him, and that could have been the starting point of what could have been a political organization for the left. So it has to start somewhere, but it cannot start unless we have the most basic political clarity of how do we go about it?
Well, do you agree with that, Professor Hedges? Because there is this argument that says, well, Bernie might not have had as much traction and movement energy and been as exposed to as many people if he hadn't run as a Democrat, if he hadn't been on the debate stage, and that the path might be run as a Democrat, but when they start asking you those questions about will you vote for the eventual nominee, do what all of the corporatists did when Bloomberg got in the race and say, it depends if it's Bernie or not, right? So go ahead and say, no, I won't pledge my allegiance to you. Say what Trump said. No, I won't commit to that right now. And instead go ahead and pursue a third party the way Shama has just described if you end up being kind of pushed out the way that Bernie was in 2016 and 2020.
No, I agree with Shama. And in fact, Shama and I were with Bernie the night before the climate march in New York City. This was back in, what was it, Shama, 2016, I think.
It was 2014, actually.
14. And Shama was pushing Bernie to run as an independent. And it was fascinating to me that Bernie responded by saying, I don't want to end up like Ralph Nader.